Pokemon, medicine and martial arts. Hey! Look who's back for more adventures. We love having you here to continue this story that keeps us all awake. Important note, all of this is pure fiction, so don't try any techniques you hear here in real life. Your neighbor might call the cops. This amazing novel and all its rights belong to the original author. We're just the ones giving it voice and drama. Are you enjoying the show? Prove it by subscribing to our YouTube channel and leaving that like that motivates us so much. And if you want VIP access to exclusive content, our Patreon is waiting with things you won't find anywhere else. Chapter 1001 Yuyu's Battle. This, Lizuner instinctively wanted to refuse the gym badge Melissa offered her. After all, it didn't really count as defeating a gym trainer. However, Yuyu, having conquered all 8 gyms in the Kalos region, had naturally experienced the problems caused by gym trainers like Melissa. Therefore, he didn't object to Melissa's behavior and helped persuade Lizuner. After a brief period of persuasion from Yuyu, Lizuner finally accepted the Yuanzi gym badge. Seeing that Lizuner had already accepted the gym badge, it also marked her victory in this gym challenge. Yuyu, eager to give it a try, immediately challenged Melissa. Faced with Yuyu's challenge, Melissa only considered it for a moment before accepting it. And just like that, the referee, who had been about to leave after the match was over, once again took his place. Yuyu, you're not a challenger in this year's Pokemon League tournament, are you? After all, gym trainers in a region are often connected, and Melissa hadn't received any information about Yuyu, hence her doubts. Yes, I didn't participate in this year's Pokemon League tournament in Sinnoh. I did participate in this year's Pokemon League tournament in Kalos, Yuyu said, without hiding anything. As he spoke, he pulled out his badge collection box, revealing 8 neatly arranged badges. Are these the 8 Kalos gym badges? You seem quite formidable, having already collected all 8. If so, let me test the waters for you. Melissa was also intrigued by Yuyu's challenge, and once again returned to his command. This time, Yuyu replaced Lizuner. This time, if I challenge you, let's go one-on-one. After all, after the battle just now, I only have a few spare Pokemon left. I only have 1 left, and honestly, you wouldn't be able to defeat the others. Melissa was very direct, not at all afraid that Yuyu would get angry. But to be honest, Yuyu didn't seem angry at all. After all, he knew how many people could become gym trainers were just average. So, he agreed very readily. It's just a one-on-one Pokemon battle. I agree. Okay, you're quite courageous. As expected of a trainer who has already earned 8 gym badges in the Kalos region, Melissa's admiration for Yuyu was even greater. Since you agreed so readily, I'll be frank too. If you can defeat me this time, I'll give you a gym badge too. Then, when you come to the Sinnoh region, you'll have already earned a badge. All you need to do is collect 7 more and you can challenge the Sinnoh Pokemon League. Yuyu didn't refuse. After all, what Melissa said was true. After the referee announced the rules once more, Yuyu and Melissa each sent out their respective Pokemon for the battle. Get ready to fight, Jengar. Sent out Jengar? In that case, it's your turn, Buzzbot. The current Buzzbot is no longer the Buzzbot of the past. Its current strength has long since reached the Quasi-King level. While it's only recently made the leap to Quasi-King, it's still a Quasi-King nonetheless. And since the Jengar sent out by the opposing team is also Quasi-King, the battle between the 2 Pokemon is relatively even. Then, Challenger, you attack first. Yuyu gave the order without hesitation. Buzzbot, use Whirlwind Blade. Jengar, use Shadow Ball to defend. Jengar swatted the Whirlwind Blade's shadow, scattering it impenetrably, leaving almost no wind blades to penetrate. However, the Whirlwind Blade's power wasn't strong enough to completely destroy the Shadow Ball's effect. Buzzbot, use your wings. Jengar, use Shadow Punch. Faced with Buzzbot's attack, Shadow Punch, originally intended as a ranged attack, was forcibly transformed by Jengar into a melee attack. The 2 skills collided, initially evenly matched, but by the end, it became a pure test of strength. However, Buzzbot had only just completed its growth phase, and due to its relatively small size, it began to fly slightly backwards in the face of Jengar's Shadow Swarm. Fortunately, Buzzbot's small size and agility allowed it to deflect the Shadow Punch attack. Buzzbot, use Whirlwind Blade continuously. Yuyu, still unwilling to give up, continued to command the same secret to Buzzbot. However, this time, facing the Whirlwind Blade, Melissa instinctively adopted a different countermeasure. Jengar, dodge, then use Shadow Punch. This time, Jengar was extremely agile, not selectively engaging. After a few deft dodges, Buzzbat's whirlwind blades were dodged, and its attack followed closely. While Buzzbat was completely focused on controlling the whirlwind blades, it launched a decisive Shadow Fist. I'm waiting for you. Hurry and dodge. Hey, challenger, haven't you been challenging in so long that you've forgotten Shadow Fist's 100% chance of success? Unless you can block it with some skill. As expected, Yuyu's heart skipped a beat after hearing Melissa's words. Because he was completely focused, he hadn't paid much attention to Jengar's attack. By then, Buzzbat hadn't had time to anticipate or dodge, and was completely struck. He stumbled and began to fall. Follow the devil. Very good, well done. This is exactly the effect we want. Let's press on and seize the opportunity. Seeing the buzzing bat's defeated look, Melissa shouted excitedly and hurriedly issued orders. As if only in this way could she successfully and thoroughly defeat the buzzing bat. Buzzing bat, use the spin attack. Chapter 1002 Defeat. Buzzbat. After hearing the trainer's order, Buzzbat immediately launched a spin attack without hesitation. A 360-degree spin slammed directly into Jengar's body. Jengar was completely unprepared for Buzzbat's swift reaction and was caught off guard. However, despite being hit by Buzzbat's spin attack, Jengar reacted quickly and followed the trainer's command. Instantly, Jengar unleashed Shadow Ball again, attacking Buzzbat. Faced with this sudden and swift attack, Buzzbat was unable to dodge and was sent flying backwards. At this moment, Jengar fully utilized the stealth and uncanny speed of a ghost-type Pokémon. Jengar reappeared in a flash, appearing in front of Buzzbat, and then unleashed a Shadow Fist, slamming Buzzbat to the ground. Faced with what could be considered a combo attack, Buzzbat was momentarily put in a state of extreme weakness, practically incapacitated the moment it hit the ground. Buzzbat is incapacitated, and the gym trainer wins, the referee announced without hesitation. Yuyu couldn't help but feel disappointed at the outcome. However, it was also somewhat predictable. After all, Buzzbat had barely passed its infancy and hadn't been in combat much. When it did, it was only with random trainers nearby. Formal gym tournaments were rare, so its inexperience and limited abilities were clearly evident. However, Yuyu had achieved his goal. His original goal was, of course, to challenge a powerful trainer, but beyond that, he also wanted to test Buzzbat. The main reason Yuyu didn't send out a more powerful Pokémon was simply to allow Buzzbat to experience the effects of longing. As for the reason for this, it's simply because the Kalos Pokémon League tournament will begin in less than a month. It will be packed with top-tier players, and trainers who have earned 8 gym badges will be no exception. At the very least, every trainer will have 1 or 2 quasi-elite level Pokémon to help them shine. Of course, these are all prerequisites for the knockout rounds. And for these knockout rounds, perhaps a few trainers are unlucky enough to encounter some powerful trainers. Otherwise, the real battles won't begin until the round of 64. Trainers who can stand out from the crowd and compete in the round of 64 are truly the real winners. Although Yuyu currently has some elite-level Pokémon, gathering 6 high-level Pokémon is still a challenge. At best, only 5 Pokémon, Molten, Charizard, Pikachu, Gyarados, and Suicune, can truly make it into the top tier, and all of them are elite level. However, from what Yuyu has learned so far, by then, aside from those with the luckiest luck, in a high-level competition like the Pokémon League, the top 64 would undoubtedly have Pokémon similar to Yuyu's, and perhaps even stronger. These Pokémon were Yuyu's top-tier fighters. Given the number of Pokémon he had, sending them out would easily reveal some of his basic information. This would force opponents to be on guard. Trainers advancing would undoubtedly be unlike those who prepared thoroughly before engaging in battle. Almost every trainer at that stage was cautious, knowing their opponent's basic information was a fundamental skill and requirement. For all these reasons, Yuyu had no choice but to activate his remaining Pokémon. After all, his trump cards would eventually be revealed. If all else failed, he would minimize exposure. At the very least, he could use other Pokémon to distract attention and better conceal his trump cards. Yuyu had this in mind, and therefore wanted to improve the strength of his remaining Pokémon within this month, at least to make some powerful cannon fodder to attract the enemy's attention. Yuyu, it seems you're a little unconcerned about your defeat this time. Melissa, worthy of being a top-tier trainer, immediately saw the emotion on Yuyu's face with a glance. It seems you're still hiding your abilities, little guy. But you can actually outsmart me under the long table. At this level, You truly possess the strength of 8 gym badges. Although Yu was on the losing side in the battle with her Pokémon, Melissa still gave him great respect. Thank you. Yu seemed to feel that his actions were a bit unkind, so he only said this in response to Melissa's praise. Yu, I look forward to your challenge in the Sinnoh Pokemon League tournament. Let's give it our all. Melissa was clearly very optimistic about the young man before her. After leaving these words, she turned and walked away with a graceful gait. Yu and Lizuner didn't stay at the gym for long either. After bidding farewell to Melissa, they also left the gym. After leaving the gym, they immediately returned to the Pokemon Center to have their Pokemon treated by Miss Joy. While Miss Joy was helping them with their Pokemon, they were also busy. Lizuner, perhaps relieved of any burden after winning the gym tournament and earning the gym badge, immediately took Yu on a tour of Fate City. Knowing that Yu had come to visit her specifically this time and wouldn't stay long, Lizuner naturally wanted to cherish the time Yu spent with her. Serena and the other 2 girls also knew about this, so when faced with the 2 of them being alone, they did not act as a light bulb. They all stayed in the Pokemon Center to prepare dinner. Chapter 1003 Xiaozhi's current situation. Yu, you must remember to come back and see me. Lizuner looked at Yu with some reluctance. After an evening of shopping and some time alone together, the next morning quickly arrived. After a simple breakfast prepared by Serena and the others, they had already made their way to the airport in Yuan City and stood at the gate. Lizuner's eyes were red, clearly reluctant to part with Yu after this brief reunion. Zuner, take care of yourself. I'll come back to see you if I have time. I hope you'll be much stronger by then. Let's have another Pokemon battle then. Yu stroked Lizuner's head, her eyes slightly red. Yes, I will. I'll definitely go to cheer you on at the Kalos Pokemon League tournament. Okay, I'll be waiting for you then. And I'll definitely take home the championship trophy. Just wait and see. Yu made this promise with a confident look on his face. It's nice to meet you, Serena. I'll leave Yu in your care. I hope we can go shopping and enjoy delicious food together again when we meet next time. I will. You must take good care of yourself when traveling alone. Be careful. After a brief conversation and some advice, Lizuner left the airport. She didn't return to the Pokemon Center, but instead left Fate City and headed for the next gym. Yu, along with his son and 3 daughters, also boarded a plane to the Kanto region. Time divider, here, just as Yu and Lizuner parted ways and boarded their flight to the Kanto region, far away in the Kanto region, stood Rainbow City. Rainbow City was one of the most famous cities in the Kanto region. Besides being home to the officially recognized Rainbow Gym, it was also a major producer of perfumes, so much so that their perfume had become its signature product. As a result, it attracted many female trainers, and Rainbow City gradually became known to the public. At this very moment, inside the Pokemon Center in Rainbow City, a spiky-haired boy paced anxiously at the entrance. What's going on with this Satoshi? Didn't I tell him earlier that Yu might be coming back to visit us soon? Rainbow is supposed to be meeting up with me. Why hasn't he even shown up yet? The spiky-haired boy scratched his hair in frustration. He'd abandoned all his girlfriends to join Satoshi. And yet, he'd waited so long. It was obvious that the boy before him was none other than Xiaomao, the grandson of Professor Oak, Satoshi's childhood rival and renowned Pokemon researcher. It wasn't surprising that Xiaomao was so irritated. After all, after receiving Yu's notification, Xiaomao had been desperately trying to contact Satoshi. They'd even agreed to meet up in Rainbow City. But, Satoshi was unreliable. Xiaomao had already cleared the Rainbow Gym in Rainbow City and earned the gym badge, but there was still no sign of Xiaozhi. What the hell is Xiaozhi doing? Yu told me he'd be meeting us in Rainbow City today, Xiaomao complained incessantly to Xiaozhi, who still hadn't appeared or even seen a trace of him. So, where exactly was Xiaozhi, the one Xiaomao kept nagging about? In a forest outside Rainbow City, 3 figures emerged in a state of panic. If Xiaomao had seen them, he would have cried out in surprise. The Xiaozhi he was nagging about was likely one of them. Damn it. Finally out of this damn forest. If he doesn't get out now, I don't know how many days he'll be wandering around in there. Xiaozhi glanced at the trees behind him and finally complained. Ash, how dare you say this isn't all your fault? You led the way. Misty, the short-haired blonde girl next to Ash, was furious. She glanced at Ash, who was constantly complaining, how could I have known it would be like this? But the map clearly says it, okay? I followed it exactly. Ash was also starting to get annoyed. Misty's constant nagging had been getting quite annoying. The narrow-eyed man standing next to Ash then added, but the map you had was the wrong way around, Ash. Ah. Really? Ash was stunned by this, but quickly, to mask his embarrassment, he let out a hearty laugh and quickly changed the subject. Alright, since we're already out here, let's hurry. There should be a rainbow ahead. Let's go to the Pokémon Center and take a shower. Although it was still morning, it didn't dampen Misty and the others' enthusiasm for the shower. After all, even if their clothes got dirty after such a long trip in the wild, they couldn't shower. At most, they could just use some stream water for a quick wash. During those days lost, they hadn't showered in ages. Besides, Xiaomao said Yu seems to be coming to visit me soon. Calculating the time, it seems like it's almost time now. Xiaozhi was getting excited at the prospect of meeting Yu, whom he hadn't seen in a while. What Xiaozhi didn't notice was that Xiaoxia's eyes lit up when she heard what Xiaozhi said. She immediately urged him, then why are you waiting? Hurry up. Why are you always keeping me waiting? You have no sense of time. Yeah, Xiaozhi, let's get to the Pokémon Center quickly. I can cook something delicious to reward us for our hard work. Xiaoguang seemed to see Miss Joy from the Pokémon Center waving at him, and his excitement grew. Then let's hurry. I want to see the Rainbow Gym soon, too. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 1004 Xiaozhi and Xiaomao. Ash, you guys are so slow. How long have I been waiting for you? At that moment, inside the Pokémon Center in Rainbow City, the spiky-haired Momo was complaining non-stop to his childhood friend and rival. Ash, realizing he was in the wrong, scratched his head in embarrassment. But Momo's words were far too harsh, and Ash, in turn, grew angry. They were about to have a nice conversation after a long time, but the two eagerly argued. Misty and Brock rushed to intervene. Ash, please stop talking. Go get Pikachu and the others over to Miss Joy. We need to shower too. You're so filthy and stink. Ash was dragged away by Misty, ending his battle with Momo prematurely. Shuck, this guy, Xiaomao, is really something. He's already this old, yet he's still so immature. Xiaomao seemed still fuming, mumbling to himself. Xiaomao, I'm so sorry. We got lost along the way, which is why we're so late. Xiaoguang quickly apologized. After all, it was them who had kept Xiaomao waiting. No, it's not your fault. It must have been that unreliable Xiaomao again. He was leading the way, but he held the map upside down, misread it, and led you astray. Xiaomao's face showed a look of someone who had seen through everything. Xiaoguang remained calm on the surface, but deep down, he was deeply shocked. As expected, they had been friends since childhood. Only someone like him could understand Xiaomao so well. Xiaoguang then chatted with Xiaomao for a while before saying goodbye and returning to the dormitory Miss Joy had arranged for them to rest. Although they had started their journey early in the morning, it was almost noon when Xiaomao and his friends arrived in Rainbow City. After showering, they ate. After finishing these chores, and talking with Xiao, they learned that Xiao had actually earned the Rainbow Gym badge. Ash immediately gave up. He had originally planned to challenge the Rainbow Gym immediately, but Pokémon caretaker Miss Joy informed him that his Pokémon were too exhausted and still hadn't recovered for at least a day. Therefore, Ash didn't insist and instead stayed at the Pokémon Center, chatting with Xiao about their travels. Misty and Brock, claiming they were running low on supplies, left the Pokémon Center and headed to the Rainbow City Mall to stock up on supplies. Xiao and Ash, realizing they were running out of supplies at the Pokémon Center, decided to go out and have some fun in Rainbow City. However, their interactions were somewhat illogical. Wherever they ate or played, they were always competing with each other. And so, the day passed quickly. Back at the Pokémon Center, Xiaozhi and the others were already exhausted. Why hasn't Yu arrived yet? Wasn't he supposed to arrive today? Xiaozhi slumped weakly over the table, staring at the Pokémon Center entrance, as if Yu would definitely show up under his watchful eyes. What? Xiaozhi, didn't I tell you Yu and the others' flight isn't until tomorrow? Xiaomao looked at Xiaozhi with some confusion. Xiaozhi was visibly stunned for a moment after hearing Xiaomao's words, then became completely furious. Xiaomao, you're kidding me, right? You clearly meant today. Seeing Xiaozhi's irritated expression, Xiaoxia and Xiaoguang, long-time travel companions, understood the reason. They both slapped their foreheads. Okay, we've been tricked by Xiaozhi again. We could have arrived later, but he kept pushing us. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in such a mess. What are you doing here so early, Xiaomao? And since you use flight as tomorrow, why did you yell at me like that when you saw me? Xiaozhi's mood darkened at this point, as he recalled Xiaomao's scathing rebuke the moment they met that morning. Xiaozhi, you're so shameless. I forgot. Didn't we agree to meet up yesterday? And look how late you've been, a whole day late? Do you know how much I've lost just because of that one day? Xiaomao was also feeling aggrieved, his words filled with resentment. His mind only flashed back to his curvaceous, sexy older female girlfriends. However, as the protagonist with a relatively low emotional intelligence, and in order to make his words seem more reasonable, Xiaozhi pretended not to know the resentment in Xiaomao's words, even though he knew it. Besides, he didn't know it himself. And so, the two of them exchanged sharp words again. Watching the two men, Ash and Shiro, arguing furiously, ready to burst into a brawl at any moment, Misty and Brock felt their nerves twitch uncontrollably. Misty even considered taking action several times, forcibly suppressing the two, but she felt uncomfortable. After all, Misty was used to suppressing Ash's words. But she felt a little embarrassed to take action against Shiro. After all, she and Shiro were only acquaintances, not close friends. It felt rude to suddenly suppress someone like that. So, Misty and Brock retreated to their rooms, hoping to unsee the scene and rest. Only Ash and Shiro were left, still arguing like two fighting cocks, their heads practically butting against each other. Damn it, this is all your fault. What gives you the right to be so arrogant? You're talking nonsense, it's obviously your fault. Watch your attitude, okay? I've sacrificed so much for you. Not only do you not appreciate it, you even dare to talk to me like that. Want to fight? Fight then, come on, I'm not afraid of you. If I frown, tilt my head, or sniff, I'm not Master Zhi. Chapter 1005, Battle of Strong Enemies. Don't accuse me of bullying you, Ash. Let's have a 2-on-2 Pokemon battle. After all, I have no interest in bullying a weakling like you. I just want to convince you. Xiaomao spread his hands in frustration, looking at the fierce-looking Ash standing across from him. You're the weakling. I've already earned 3 gym badges. If I win this time and get the Rainbow Gym badge, I'll have 4. Faced with a taunt from his formidable rival, Xiaomao, of course, was deeply unconvinced. As he spoke, he lifted his shirt, revealing the 3 officially recognized Pokemon League gym badges pinned to it. Oh, really? Then you're really amazing. I'm so scared. Xiaomao didn't hear the sarcasm in Xiaomao's words at all. He simply thought Xiaomao was genuinely intimidated by his own strength, and he raised his head proudly. He looked at Xiaomao, who looked smug at his words. Xiaomao, however, held his forehead with a headache, expressing a sense of helplessness. How could his childhood rival be like this? He seemed completely clueless. If he kept chatting with him like this, he might even be led astray. Xiaomao felt a sense of apprehension, and as he thought about it, his hand moved inadvertently. A box slipped out of his belt. Oh, isn't this my badge collection box? How did it get out? I need to be careful. It contains all the gym badges I've earned through hard battles with my Pokemon. Xiaomao quickly squatted down and picked up the fallen badge collection box, pretending to accidentally open it, revealing it directly to Xiaozhi's view. Xiaozhi's attention was naturally drawn to Xiaomao's actions, and he was also very curious to know how many gym badges Xiaozhi had obtained. Therefore, the boy began to concentrate intently, carefully counting the other badges neatly arranged in the badge collection box. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Xiaozhi couldn't help but count out loud, his voice trembling slightly. This couldn't be wrong. Xiaomao actually already had 6 gym badges. Deep in denial, a bit of disbelief, Xiaozhi thought his eyes were blurry, or perhaps it was because he had trouble sleeping after a day of wondering that his brain was hallucinating. He had counted 6 instead of 3 gym badges, making such a simple mistake. So, Xiaozhi rubbed his eyes again and began counting again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Xiaozhi counted 3 times to confirm whether he was reading the book. But after counting 3 times, he still got the same result. The badge collection in front of him still had 6 gym badges neatly arranged in the middle. Xiaomao, why do you have 6 gym badges? Xiaozhi finally asked the question he'd been wanting to ask, in disbelief and surprise. Facing Xiaozhi's look of astonishment and disbelief, Xiaomao smugly stroked his bangs, then carefully collected the badges and put them back into his pocket. Oh, those 6 gym badges aren't that hard to get. I've been traveling with my girlfriends in my sports car, and whenever I come across a gym, I just take them down. I've earned a few. Add in the rainbow gym badge I just completed yesterday, and I should have 6 now. Let me think about it. Participating in the Pokemon League tournament only requires 8 badges, right? I have 6 now, so I only need 2 more. Xiaomao spoke with a smug look. However, these 6 gym badges showed that Xiaomao's travels had boosted his strength. Otherwise he wouldn't have been able to obtain so many gym badges. That's double the number of gym badges Xiaozhi has. Of course, this also illustrates a point. A region isn't limited to just the 8 officially recognized gyms. There are also gyms in other locations. However, Xiaozhi followed a pre-planned route, which made his efficiency much slower. Similarly, Yu, Li Zuner, and Chen Kalen all planned their itineraries in advance. They weren't like Xiaomao, driving around with his girlfriend in a sports car, training Pokemon. Instead, they were down to earth. However, there was also the fact that among the 6 gyms Xiaomao challenged, there were certainly strong and weak ones. Otherwise, with Xiaomao's current strength, earning all 6 gym badges would be quite difficult. Well, Xiaozhi, I advise you to just admit defeat and surrender. You're not going to be my opponent for a million years now. Damn it, stop looking down on me. Even if you earn 6 gym badges, what's the point? What does it mean? I can do the same. It's just a matter of time before you do. Xiaozhi roared in dissatisfaction. Oh, really? In that case, let's have a proper fight. Let me see what you're made of. Don't worry, I'll show you what I'm made of. Ash and Momo once again separated and turned on the lights in the Pokemon Center battle arena. No referee was needed, they simply agreed on a 2-on-2 match. They simultaneously sent out their chosen Pokemon. This Pidgeot battle is yours, Toucan. My Pokemon is here. With the battle seemingly set to turn into an aerial duel, it's hard not to admit that these two rivals have a remarkable chemistry. They both dispatched their first-class Pokemon, both flying-type Pokemon. Even more coincidental was the fact that the initial forms of Pidgeot and Toucan were essential for new trainers, yet there was something many new trainers didn't know. Chapter 1006 The Final Battle. The initial forms of the 2 Pokemon, Pidgeot and Toucan, are a must-have for any novice trainer. However, one thing many new trainers don't know is that these 2 Pokemon are natural enemies. Neither accepts the other, and wherever they meet, they fight. Therefore, the moment their Pokemon are deployed by their respective trainers, tensions flare, and sparks flicker in their eyes. In just a few seconds, the atmosphere reaches a new level of tension. Ash, you idiot. Don't you know that Pidgeot and Toucan have a natural enemy relationship? As Professor Oak's grandson, Xiaomao has some knowledge of Pokemon. Seeing this, he couldn't help but slap his forehead, appearing distressed and frustrated. However, Xiaozhi acted nonchalant. But so what? Isn't our battle just like that between Pidgeot and Toucan? Would that make it easier for us to fight? Xiaomao was somewhat surprised that the simple-minded but powerful Xiaozhi could actually say such a thing. However, it was precisely because of Xiaozhi's words that the battle between the two became even more imminent. Pidgeot, use Flash Preemptive. Toucan, we also use Flash Preemptive. The 2 flying Pokemon soared in midair, each emitting a flash of lightning at high speed. Their beaks felt like steel, and every collision produced a sound like steel clashing. Toucan, use Frenzy Attack. Pidgeot, use Wing Attack. Pidgeot, use Shadow Clone, then Blast. Toucan, we also use Blast Preemptive, then Spin. Perhaps because they were natural enemies, the 2 flying Pokemon unleashed their skills without reservation, each one deadly. Almost every move they unleashed was unleashed with their full force, as if they were clashing against each other before they were captured. This was the most primitive law of nature, the survival of the fittest. Therefore, each Pokémon was determined to display their utmost strength, determined not to be eliminated. The two Pokémon's fight intensified, their true passions aroused to the fullest. Even at the end of the fight, the two Pokémon had long since escaped the control of their respective trainers. Even without their trainers' orders, their battles remained fierce, almost brutal. By the end, they had practically disregarded their trainers' commands, seemingly oblivious to them. They fought with all their might, and with each clash, wounds were clearly visible on their bodies. Watching the situation spiral out of control, Ash and Cheryl were momentarily at a loss, shouting at their Pokémon to calm down. Fortunately, while the situation seemed somewhat out of control, the strength of both Pokémon was relatively modest, thus causing little damage to the surrounding area. Compared to Lizunar and Chen Kalin, Xiaomao and Xiaozi's Pokémon had only reached the peak of the elite level, barely a hair's breadth away from becoming a quasi-prodigy. However, for a novice trainer, possessing such powerful Pokémon was considered quite impressive. As for Chen Kalin and Lizunar, these two trainers were completely unexpected. After all, not only did they start with legendary-level Pokémon, but due to their own family circumstances, they had learned a great deal about supporting Pokémon. Furthermore, given their age and experience in Pokémon training, it was no surprise that they both now possessed quasi-prodigy-level Pokémon to maintain their presence. Ash and Momo were truly new trainers, as they didn't have a systematic Pokémon training system at this point. They could only level up their Pokémon through constant battles with others. While their Pidgeot and Toucan looked only elite, with proper command, a Quasi-Protus could be defeated. Furthermore, both Ash and Momo possessed Quasi-Protus Pokémon. It's just that their current trainer levels were still too low, and they hadn't yet discovered their Pokémon's levels. Otherwise, Ash's Pikachu would have already reached Quasi-Protus, as would Charmeleon, who had recently reached a breakthrough. As for the remaining Bulbasaur, Squirtle, and Pidgeot, they were still a bit short of Quasi-Protus. As for Momo, his Squirtle and Windy had already reached Quasi-Protus, and his new Eevee had also reached the level he was currently focusing on. He strayed from the topic, returning his focus to the present moment. The two flying Pokémon ultimately lost their combat abilities. Ash and Mao breathed a sigh of relief at the end of the frantic battle. However, since this round was inconclusive, each of them had their own concerns. After all, they hadn't secured the victory, which would have opened up the situation for the next battle. Therefore, the second battle would be their final showdown. They now began to take it seriously. Ash, he said, how about we use our strongest Pokémon to battle it out? A battle to determine the winner and show how much you've grown, Mao suggested. Ash, of course, wouldn't refuse Mao's suggestion. After all, they were formidable rivals, and refusing would put them at a disadvantage. Alright, let's each send out our strongest Pokémon. Since we're going to send out our strongest Pokémon, then your Pikachu should be the one. Chapter 1007 Defeat. Stuttle, I'll be counting on you one more time. Ash dispatched his currently strongest Pikachu, and Squirtle dispatched his starter Pokémon, Stuttle. Pikachu, use 100,000 volts. Stuttle, use Bubble Beam. Strings of crystal clear bubbles emanated from Stuttle's mouth. Even against the 100,000 volts, which had a stat advantage, Stuttle showed no sign of being at a disadvantage. At this moment, the 100,000 volts was like a piercing arrow, its passage leaving a trail of bubbles exploding like firecrackers. Pikachu. Flash of lightning. Stuttle, use Rocket Headbutt. Seeing that their long-range attacks had no effect, the two trainers, in perfect harmony, deployed their Pokémon's melee abilities. Ash's Pikachu was, after all, not Yu's, and its physical prowess was also inferior to Yu's. Facing the obviously physically superior Squirtle's Rocket Blast, Pikachu's Lightning Flash had the advantage in speed. However, facing the significantly more powerful Rocket Headbutt, Pikachu was powerless to defend. The moment they made contact, Pikachu was sent flying. Squirtle, good opportunity, use Water Gun. Pikachu, use Shadow Clone, then Speed Move, then Iron Tail. Squirtle, use Shell Retraction. Faced with Pikachu's barrage of attacks, Squirtle abruptly retracted its limbs, tail, and head into its shell. Squirtle's shell was like the strongest protection in the world, unmoved by Pikachu's barrage. Seeing that Pikachu's attack seemed to have no effect on Squirtle, Ash was deeply dismayed that Pikachu's attacks hadn't harmed Squirtle, but he had no choice but to issue other orders. I don't believe it. How long can your shell hold up? Pikachu, use 100,000 volts, as expected, facing one of the ultimate electric-type attacks, 100,000 volts. Even Xiaomao, who is very confident in the defensive power of his Squirtle's shell, began issuing orders with a look of fear. Squirtle, use spin, facing Pikachu's 100,000 volts. Xiaomao didn't intend to confront it head-on. He simply ordered Squirtle to use spin to block it. However, as Squirtle used spin, the 100,000 volts originally aimed at Squirtle were directly deflected by the force of the spin. Furthermore, spin itself was intended to be offensive, but Xiaomao, through his extensive Pokémon battles, had developed unique uses for it. However, this didn't disguise the fact that spin was an offensive skill. Stoddle spun at high speed, like a spinning top, slamming directly into Pikachu. Pikachu, seemingly undeterred, continued its 100,000 volt attack on Stoddle. However, Ash, a Pokémon trainer with extensive experience in countless battles, was decisive in this situation, allowing Pikachu to avoid it without hesitation. Perhaps due to the initial delay, Pikachu's speed was ultimately slowed down, and Stoddle's high-speed spin was already aggressive. And just like that, Pikachu was once again undeniably sent flying by Stoddle's high-speed spin. With just this one impact, Pikachu landed heavily on the battlefield behind him, then slowly struggled to his feet. Then, as if all the strength had been drained from Pikachu, its limbs suddenly limp, and its entire body fell to the ground, unable to fight. Although no referee announced the outcome of this battle, both players had already experienced so many battles before, and the outcome was already clear in their minds. Ash found it difficult to accept that his Pikachu had lost to the powerful Squirtle. After all, he had assumed that the opponent's 6 gym badges were simply luck. It seemed that the opponent was very strong, at least much stronger than himself. Moreover, his Pikachu had an attribute advantage over Squirtle, yet he still lost. Although Ash usually seemed a little confused about attribute matters, even occasionally engaging in reverse attribute battles, he did understand some of the most basic attribute restraints. Ash trudged towards the now incapacitated Pikachu, his hat brim obscuring his facial expression. He remained silent throughout the entire walk. When he reached Pikachu, he silently lifted her up, but then, as if frozen in place, he made no further movement. He returned Stoddle to his Pokeball and gazed upon Ash, now half-kneeling in the battle arena, holding Pikachu in his arms. This was his childhood rival. Xiaomao, too, seemed motionless, watching silently. Time passed like this, an unfathomable amount of time. Whether tired of standing or for some other reason, Xiaomao finally moved, silently turning around. Xiaozi, after all this traveling, is this all you've gotten? You truly disappoint me. Your current strength is truly too weak. Xiaomao, with his back to the camera, didn't see Xiaozi, who had been as still as a statue, tremble slightly at his words. With just these words, Xiaomao headed straight for the Pokémon Center. If this is all you've gotten, then I urge you to give up. The dream of becoming a Pokémon Master is nothing but a joke. It's like you can't even keep up with me now. Chapter 1008 Xiaomao's Cold Words. If this is all you've got, then I advise you to give up. That dream of becoming a Pokémon Master is nothing but a joke. You can't even keep up with me right now. These words, tinged with indifference yet a touch of calm, drifted through the silent night air, irritating Ash's already languishing spirit. Meanwhile, in a room at the Pokémon Center, Misty and Brock stood by the glass window, watching the previous battle. Ash, still half-kneeling in the battlefield, cradled Pikachu in his arms, was silent. Is Ash okay? I really didn't expect Pikachu to be so powerful. Misty and Brock exchanged glances at the figure currently in the battlefield, their gazes filled with complexities. After all, Ash has had far too few Pokémon battles and experiences. Similarly, he's had far too few encounters with Masters. You don't really think that getting 3 gym badges makes you truly impressive, do you? Misty sighed, clearly agreeing with Brock. Although neither Misty nor Brock wanted to admit it, they had to admit that in Ash's previous battles against the Cerulean and Nabi gyms, if they hadn't let him win, it would have been difficult for him to win a gym badge with his skills. Furthermore, both of their gyms are quite well known among the renowned gyms in the Kanto region. Let's start with these 8 famous Pokémon gyms. The Crimson Gym's trainer was once a Fire King, the Golden Gym's possessed uncanny and unpredictable abilities, and the Takawa Gym's trainer, Itsuki, was known as the Big Floorwood. These 3 gyms arguably rank among the top, each one incredibly powerful. Beyond these three, there are also some other formidable gyms, but at least with Ash's current strength, these are completely unmatched. The third gym leader they challenged midway, Machichi, was considered quite formidable. However, Ash was completely powerless against him. Ultimately, it was only through constant reminders, special training, and Pikachu's own hard work that he earned his third gym badge. Sigh, Misty and Pikachu sighed in frustration, seemingly reflecting on the same point. While that might be true, weren't they actually the same? Otherwise, they wouldn't have gone on training trips with Ash. It's okay. Trust Ash, he doesn't seem like the type to be defeated so easily. Although Xiaomao is very strong, I believe he can catch up if given time. Brock crossed his arms, his eyes, which had been narrowed slightly, now open wide. He stared intently at Ash, who stood up and walked silently towards the Pokémon Center, holding Pikachu in his arms. His eyes seemed to blaze with a flickering flame, constantly flickering. The morning sun shone upon the land, awakening all creatures of nature. Pokémon, second only to humans in the world, had already begun to forage for breakfast. As for the captive Pokémon, some were flirting with their owners, while others were beginning a day of special training with them. Rainbow City Pokémon Center. Perhaps out of habit, Xiaozhi didn't sleep in like he usually did at home. Instead, after last night's defeat against his arch-rival, Xiaomao, he spent the night reflecting on his future path. He finally decided to rely on his own strength to catch up with Xiaomao, and to make the most of every second. At this moment, Xiaozhi had just returned from training with his Pokémon. Perhaps having learned the outcome of yesterday's Pokémon battle, his Pokémon were working extra hard for today's training. Each one completely absorbed in their training. Suddenly, starving, he remembered he hadn't had breakfast yet, so he returned to the Pokémon Center and devoured the food that Xiaoguang had prepared. Xiaomao was among the group. Looking at Xiaozhi, who seemed to have grown so much after last night's battle, Xiaomao was stunned for a moment. Was this still the same Xiaozhi he knew? Why did he feel so changed in just one night? He barely recognized him. But with Xiaomao's personality, he certainly wouldn't admit it. Although he was a little surprised by Xiaozhi's change, he later shrugged it off and shook his head. How could this guy, Xiaozhi, possibly surpass me? I just beat him yesterday. Ignoring Xiaomao's current thoughts, Xiaoxia looked curiously at Xiaozhi, who had just returned and was devouring his breakfast. Xiaozhi, so what are you going to do next? Have you thought about it? I have. I plan to challenge the Rainbow Gym right after breakfast. Then we can go to the airport together or wait for you to arrive. Xiaozhi's face lit up with excitement as he spoke, as if he had thought of something exciting. Then, after I get the Rainbow Gym badge, I'm going to challenge you. I don't know how strong Yu is now, but no matter what, I'm going to challenge him. Looking at Xiaozhi's blood boiling at this moment, Xiaomao couldn't help but laugh as if he had heard a ridiculous joke. Haha, still challenging you? I think you should just forget it. You can't even beat me, and yet you still want to challenge you? You really don't know your place. Xiaozhi, when will you grow up and stop humiliating yourself? Xiaomao's words were harsh and unforgiving. Xiaozhi blushed immediately, his face flushing red. He wanted to say something in his defense, but after opening his mouth and holding it in for a long time, no words came out. After all, the facts were there, and they had just happened last night. He had indeed been defeated by Xiaomao. Chapter 1009 Overreaction. Xiaomao, you're going too far. It's true that Satoshi can't beat you right now, but what about later? Can you guarantee that Satoshi won't defeat you forever? As if unable to bear it any longer, Brock took the lead and stood up. You know, Brock is generally quite kind. Normally, as long as he's not angered, he's quite peaceful and easygoing, but even now, a hint of anger could be heard in his words. Why wouldn't that be possible? If I could defeat Satoshi once, I'm sure I can defeat him a second time, a third time, countless times. Xiaomao, you're being too arrogant. It's just a win over Satoshi. Satoshi isn't that strong right now. Don't think you're truly impressive just because you beat him. It's just two weaklings fighting each other. Misty, as if unable to bear it any longer, also stood up from the same table. Though her face was blazing with anger, her final taunts were unwavering. Xiaomao, let me tell you something you won't like. I don't know whether Yu is truly formidable or not, but this is what I do know. From what you just said, I can tell you're afraid of Yu's strength, Xiaoguang. Both Xiaomao and Xiaozhi were stunned after hearing Xiaogang's words. Xiaozhi, in particular, gazed at Xiaoguang, who now displayed a unique aura. His eyes were filled with an inexplicable glint. Xiaoguang now seemed as imposing and heavy as when he first saw him, his demeanor as solid as a rock. At least now, Xiaozhi, I think he's improving every day. It's only a matter of time before I surpass and defeat you. Without giving anyone a chance to be surprised, Xiaogang's words remained sharp, the flames still blazing in his open eyes. Xiaozhi, ignore him. Just do what's in your heart. Xiaogang stepped forward, patted Xiaozhi's shoulder, and offered a soothing word before returning to his usual self. But at this moment, no matter how ordinary Xiaogang seemed, no one present dared to belittle him. Xiaomao, don't you look down on Xiaozhi? Come on, Xiaozhi, we'll go challenge the Rainbow Gym with you now. Xiao Misty snorted coldly and dragged Xiaozhi out of the Pokémon Center, heading towards the Rainbow Gym. With the departure of the crowd, the once bustling scene suddenly became deserted, leaving Xiaomao in a state of complete shock. He stared at the departing figures, lost in thought, his mind replaying Xiaokang's somewhat cold, even harsh, and even slightly harsh words. Am I really wrong? Silently pondering, Xiaomao's steps involuntarily headed towards the Pokémon Center's communication area. Let's not talk about what happened between Xiaozhi and Xiaomao at the Pokémon Center for now. After a day of flying, Yu finally arrived at Rainbow City in the Kanto region from the Sinnoh region. Yu was also somewhat relieved that Xiaomao and Xiaozhi had appeared near Rainbow City at the same time. Otherwise, if they had gone to other cities, the planes would probably not have been able to reach them. Then we'd have to call a taxi or walk. After all, Rainbow City's unique operations and the products it sells have made it one of the most prestigious cities in the entire Kanto region. It could even be considered a small international city. Yu, where are we going now? Walking along the bustling streets, Yu and Serena weren't in a rush to reunite with Xiaozhi and the others. Instead, they wandered around with great interest. Rainbow City, in particular, is famous for its perfume. Therefore, perfume shops are everywhere on the streets. This led to Serena and the others stopping at almost every shop they passed to smell the perfume and compare it with others. If they liked it, they would buy it outright. Of course we're going to meet up with Satoshi, Shigeki, and the others, right? They're probably getting impatient. But we're not in a rush. It won't take a while, anyway. If you want to keep dancing, go ahead. Yu was already swamped with baggage, even the frail Pikachu wasn't spared. But even so, he didn't give up after just a few moments of shopping with the girls, like the other boys. He was still full of energy. Serena and the others nodded in satisfaction at Yu's display, deeply pleased with their masterpiece. Well, then, let's see what happens. After all, it would be a shame to meet Satoshi and the others without some gifts. Air, though deeply pleased with Yu's performance, continued to say so. Yu was, of course, unaware of the three girls' thoughts. If he knew, he'd probably be unsure how he would react. At that moment, though he looked disheveled with his bags, seeing the three women's genuine smiles, Yu felt it was all worth it. After all, sometimes, Yu felt he owed them so much. If something as simple as shopping could make them happy, why not spend 3 days and 3 nights there? The three of them continued their stroll, chatting and laughing, from the surrounding shops to the high-rise shopping malls. Before they knew it, Yu, Serena, and the other two had already spent a full 3 hours. They didn't rush to the Pokémon Center right away, but instead had lunch outside before heading to the Pokémon Center. However, on the way to the Pokémon Center, they stopped in their tracks as they passed a store. Seeing Yu pause and look at a store, Serena and the other two, who had been following him, also stopped and looked at the same store. Why are they here? Serena said in surprise, as if she had seen something that took her by surprise. However, when hearing Serena's question to Yu, Air and Xiaoxia seemed a little confused. They. Chapter 1010 Yu appears. Who are they? Following Yu and Serena's gaze, Air spotted the people inside the store and immediately asked curiously. Xiaoxia didn't say anything at the moment, but her eyes were also fixed on Yu with a curious, inquiring look. Why are Satoshi and the others here? Didn't he say he'd meet me at the Pokémon Center? Satoshi is still Satoshi. I didn't expect that after all these years, Satoshi is still Satoshi. Nothing's changed. Serena also looked a little surprised, the joy of meeting old friends. Let's go in and see what's going on. Yu took the lead and walked in. Indeed, in the store, just as Yu had seen, were Satoshi and his group. It turned out that while Yu and the others weren't meeting at the Pokémon Center, but were instead out shopping, Satoshi and the others hadn't been idle at all. After some inquiries, they had found the location of the Rainbow Gym. That's right. The Pokémon Gym in Rainbow City, the Rainbow Gym, was indeed this store right before their eyes. This Rainbow Gym, while superficially a shop, is also a shop. The two are practically connected. The shop sells a dazzling array of perfumes, and from time to time, you'll see attractive young women introducing their best fragrances to customers. When Xiaoxia, Xiaoguang, and Xiaozhi arrived, they didn't immediately seek out a gym to challenge. Instead, they were captivated by the sheer variety of perfumes. This shop, worthy of being a perfume shop, was filled with a dazzling array of fragrant aromas. Xiaoxia and Xiaoguang were immediately captivated. Because women naturally have an insatiable appetite for perfumes and all sorts of cosmetics, Xiaoxia quickly joined the women in their discussion about which perfume would suit her best. As for why Xiaoguang, a grown man, was so interested in perfume, it was simply to be with a beautiful woman. He'd put a lot of thought into it. Look, at this moment, he has already started brainstorming about what kind of perfume to give to the beautiful older sisters he knows. He even imagined that after he gave them the perfume, the older sisters would agree to be with him, and they could live a shameless life. Thinking of this, Xiaoguang's saliva almost flowed out. Xiaozhi, who was standing next to him, felt a chill. Xiaoguang, what's wrong with this guy? Why does he have such a vulgar expression? Is this Xiaoguang still the Xiaoguang who dared to point at Xiaomao's nose and preach at the Pokémon Center just now? Although he kept complaining in his heart, Xiaozhi didn't say anything. But he still had a little bit of beautiful thoughts in his heart, and pulled Xiaoguang next to him. Xiaoguang, let's go challenge the gym. Stop looking at these perfumes. Why would a grown man like you wear perfume? We're men. Besides, this perfume smells really bad. Xiaozhi's voice gradually became quieter as he spoke, even sounding a little uneasy. What's wrong? What's wrong? Did I say something wrong? A deathly silence fell. What Xiaozhi didn't notice was that Xiaoguang, who was standing beside him, was sweating profusely and unconsciously distanced himself from Xiaozhi. Xiaoguang, why are you standing so far away from me? Xiaoguang, who had been retreating at the time, even quickened his pace after hearing Xiaozhi's call. Xiaoxia also stopped talking to the store clerk. It wasn't that she didn't want to continue, but the female clerk was looking at Xiaozhi with a stern look. Why does Xiaozhi always cause trouble wherever he goes? Xiaoxia, feeling a headache, covered her face. As expected, aside from the few customers present, the female shop assistants all started to get angry. Hey, you stinky Xiaoji Yui, what are you saying? How dare you say our perfume stinks? You don't even have the taste to appreciate it yourself, so don't even bother saying it. You're making everyone else do the same. Our perfume is the most fragrant in all of Rainbow City. Even other countries have produced it. The female shop assistants launched into a barrage of insults at Xiaozhi. Xiaozhi was stunned. It was just a simple statement, wasn't it? You guys are so annoying. I just wanted to challenge a gym match. Is it that serious? Just as Xiaozhi was completely mad, a beautiful girl in a kimono walked out from behind with a graceful gait, but her pretty face was also filled with anger. Go away. You're not welcome here. You don't even have the slightest respect for perfume. Trainers like you are truly rude. Who are you? I'm here to challenge a gym, not to mess with you. Take me to challenge your gym trainer now. I'll leave after that. I don't want to stay here any longer. Xiaozhi was also annoyed. After all, he was being targeted by so many girls, and he was a hot-blooded boy. However, after hearing Xiaozhi's shout, the expression on one girl's face couldn't help but worsen. I'm the gym trainer of the Rainbow Gym. I don't want to see you right now. Get out of here. At this time, the security guards at the store entrance also rushed over. After hearing the order from their boss, they ignored Xiaozhi's struggles and grabbed him, trying to run out. Stop. At this moment, a voice from outside the store door made everyone stop what they were doing, and their eyes all turned to the outside. All they saw was a man and 3 women walking in from the store. The men were handsome, and the women were all very beautiful. These 4 people were of course Yu and Serena. They had just been attracted by the scene before them, so they stopped to watch. Similarly, the above events were also the reason why Yu and the others came in to investigate out of curiosity. Yu, I didn't expect it to be him. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 1011, The beginning of the Rainbow Gym Tournament. Seeing the figure walk in, Xiaoxi's headache, which had been a bit of a headache, suddenly seemed to have healed, sparkling with surprise. Yu, I didn't expect it was really you. Xiaozi, who was being carried out by two security guards, slowed his struggles upon seeing Yu suddenly appear, staring blankly. Xiaozi, you look so disheveled. Why do you always look so disheveled every time I see you? Although Yu had only been in for a few minutes, his excellent hearing gave him a rough idea of what had happened. He rubbed his head, also feeling a bit of a headache. Xiaozi was such a straight man. If it weren't for his charming personality, it would be a different story whether he could find a wife in the future. However, he had to resolve this matter first. After all, being resented by a girl is not a good thing. Yu immediately displayed his charming personality and engaged in a conversation with the kimono-clad girl. The kimono-clad girl was, of course, the store manager and the Rainbow Gym leader, Rika. It's fair to say that appearance is a valuable asset. In this day and age, appearance is a crucial factor in determining anything. With Yu's presence, he appealed to their emotions and reasoned with them, calming the anger of the women present. Even Rika, the store manager, was no exception. She also agreed to the Pokemon Gym battle challenge that Xiaozi had challenged her to. However, her eyes remained fierce, as if she wanted to devour Xiaozi and give him a beating. Xiaozi felt a chill in his spine, a sense of foreboding. However, the slightest emotion he felt was immediately replaced by excitement at the fact that the other party had agreed to the gym battle. Even then, it was still a time of meeting fellow villagers, tears welling in their eyes. After Yu, Serena, and the other two girls each bought a few more bottles of perfume, earning the favor of the female shop assistant and Lygia, they excused themselves, saying they had something to do temporarily, planning to return to challenge the gym after their shopping trip. The prospect of meeting Yu again temporarily dampened Xiaozi's resolve to challenge the Rainbow Gym right away. So, Yixin bought a few bottles of perfume and lingered in the store, planning to return later, picking them up after Xiaozi finished his gym match. Of course, during their shopping trip, they were introduced to each other. However, when introducing the other girls, Yu sensed something strange in the atmosphere. He couldn't quite put his finger on what it was, but the atmosphere throughout the entire shopping trip was positive. After all, Xiaoxia and Xiaoguang had already explored the Rainbow Gym yesterday and stocked up on the supplies they needed, helping Yu and the others with their supplies. During this time, for some unknown reason, Misty, Serena, and the other two women unexpectedly found themselves chatting together again. They became incredibly familiar with each other, like long-lost sisters, filled with laughter and joy. Yu, thanks to Professor Oak's previous encounter, was also quite familiar with the various gym trainers in the Kanto region, and so enjoyed a pleasant chat with Brock. Satoshi would occasionally chime in. However, after the initial excitement of their reunion wore off, Satoshi regained his enthusiasm and immediately challenged Yu. Yu, however, declined, citing his upcoming gym match. Yu, now a formidable figure, didn't consider Satoshi, the rookie trainer, weak, and therefore lacked any interest in challenging him. After all, he wouldn't underestimate any opponent, especially one with immense potential. However, Yu had also learned, through Brock and Misty, about Satoshi's battle with Shigeki the previous day and the argument that had occurred that morning. Therefore, Yu felt that it wasn't the right time for a Pokemon battle with Xiaozi. Xiaozi was simply too weak right now. Even if Yu was willing to fight him, he probably wouldn't have the slightest experience. So, the group strolled around the streets for a while longer. Just when Xiaozi's patience was about to wear thin, Serena, the other two girls, and Misty finally decided to return to Lygia's shop to challenge him to gym. It was true that with Xiaozi and Brock joining in the free labor, Yu's shopping became much easier. However, this left Brock and Xiaozi exhausted. Upon arriving at Lygia's shop, the two men sat down somewhere, almost unrefined, guzzling drinks. It wasn't just them, their Pokémon were doing the same. Xiaozhi, are you sure you want to start the gym battle now? Lygia, though somewhat displeased with Xiaozhi due to her mood, appeared completely dedicated to her duties as a Pokémon gym trainer. Because they were both gym trainers, Lygia actually knew Brock and was also somewhat curious about the young man's team. Come on, I can't wait. Upon hearing about the upcoming Pokémon battle, Xiaozhi's blood immediately boiled with excitement. His Pokémon were also likewise excited. Alright, if that's the case, follow me. Lygia took the lead and headed into a certain area of the store. Yu and the others followed closely. Even though they weren't participating in a gym battle, they were filled with curiosity about every gym. As a gym trainer, one could almost tell the difference by looking at their gym. What were the battle styles and preferences of each gym trainer? The Rainbow Gym facilities were located in a room deep within Lygia's store. This space felt like stepping into a botanical garden, with a variety of plants everywhere, including various grass-type Pokémon, and there roamed among them. The refreshing fragrance of nature permeated the air, and just entering the room made one feel as if they were immersed in nature. Chapter 1012, One Victory. The Rainbow Gym battle soon began. Yu and the others conscientiously joined the audience seats to watch. Xiaozhi, alone, stepped onto the battlefield's command area and began directing the battle. The Rainbow Gym battle is a 2-on-2 Pokémon battle. When one team's Pokémon is completely incapacitated, the other team wins. At this moment, one of the female shop assistants volunteered to referee. Actually, the female shop assistant was originally a regular referee for the league, but she also worked part-time as a waitress at the store. This was probably a common practice at every gym, as referees were either regular referees assigned by the league, or close friends or connections to the gym trainer. This made things much easier for the gym to develop. Of course, there were some more talented gyms where trainers didn't rely on human referees at all, using robot referees instead. However, these gym trainers were relatively rare, as they didn't have the brains, and the expense of using a robot referee was prohibitive. With a referee's command, the battle erupted. It was the same old formula, with a challenger almost always attacking first. However, for greater fairness, some gym trainers sent out their Pokémon first. Bellsprout, then it's you, Pikachu, Bellsprout, use Leaf Blade, Pikachu, use Lightning Flash, Pikachu, with its nimble form and immense speed, nimbly dodged Leaf Blade's sharp attacks one after another. Meanwhile, Pikachu, using its immense speed, had already closed in on Bellsprout. Ash and Pikachu were in perfect harmony. Seeing this situation, they acted decisively and gave another command, Pikachu, use Iron Tail. With a flash of metallic luster, Iron Tail lashed out at Bellsprout with the force of a mountain-splitting blow. Unable to resist, Bellsprout was sent flying backwards by Iron Tail's blow. However, Rika remained unfazed. With a calm expression, she continued to command, Bellsprout, use your Vine Whip. Bellsprout's body appeared remarkably flexible, the very tendons supporting it gave off a sense of resilience and unyielding will. Having avoided being blown away, Bellsprout instantly used its branch-like form to stand back up, launching 2 Vine Whips as it did so. Pikachu, now at a point where his strength had waned anew, faced 2 Vine Whips swooping out from both sides, completely blocking his escape route. He could only endure these 2 Vine Whips, each lashing leaving a rip in his flesh. Pikachu, use 100,000 volts. Having completely withstood the blows, Pikachu launched his own attack, taking advantage of Bellsprout's continued Vine Whipping to unleash his 100,000 volts. As expected, caught in this multitasking situation, Trumpet had no time to defend himself, completely absorbing the 100,000 volt attack. However, bathed in the 100,000 volt thunder, Trumpet seemed unharmed, continuing to twist its sinewy body. What's this guy, Ash? Grass types are particularly resistant to electric types. Using electric type skills on Trumpet will have little effect. Serena, watching from the audience, couldn't help but grow anxious. Xiaoxia was surprised, glancing sideways at Serena. Serena, I didn't expect you, besides being a Pokémon trainer, to be so familiar with Pokémon battles. Her surprise faded, followed by a sigh of resignation. Alice, unlike you, kid. That idiot, with a primary job as a Pokémon trainer, can't even beat you, a secondary job. He probably only has a few simple Pokémon attribute counters. No, this is all just my experience watching you battle with others. Sometimes when we spar, He teaches us a few things. Serena felt a little embarrassed, and her pretty face blushed as she looked at Yu. Xiaoxi's gaze also shifted to Yu, a complex expression in her eyes. Putting aside what was happening in the audience, as Serena had said, electric-type skills would do minimal damage to a grass-type sprout. Furthermore, Bellsprout is a rather unique entity, its body composed almost entirely of tendons. Even with a 100,000 volt charge, it simply conducted the electricity to the ground through the roots in its feet. However, seeing the 100,000 volt charge had no effect at all, Pikachu, without hesitation, unleashed another lightning flash, charging towards Bellsprout. While the 100,000 volt charge would have had minimal damage to Bellsprout, it certainly would have been affected. Therefore, in this situation, Bellsprout was completely crushed by Pikachu's lightning flash. Furthermore, Pikachu followed suit, unleashing Iron Tail to lash out at Bellsprout's roots. The force of Iron Tail made Bellsprout feel as if its tendons were being struck by an axe, its entire body feeling as if it were being split in two. Then, under the immense force of inertia, Bellsprout's body flew backwards, slamming hard into the wall outside the battle arena, leaving a deep dent. Unsurprisingly, Bellsprout was instantly incapacitated. Seeing her own Bellsprout again, Rika showed no sign of dismay even after losing her ability to fight. She spoke to Bellsprout again, and after returning it to its Pokeball, she offered a few words of comfort. Then we should send this child into battle next. Rika had already grasped a delicate-looking Pokeball in her hand, a gentle expression on her face. Chapter 1013 Stinky Flower. Big sister, it looks like we're going to send that kid out, miss. I didn't expect to be pushed to this point, to actually send that kid out. Everyone, get ready, hurry, hurry, everyone, get ready, miss. She's finally unleashing her secret weapon. The gym battle had begun, and the surrounding staff had all paused from their work. But at that moment, upon seeing Lygia's performance and the exquisite Pokeball in her hand, their faces flashed with excitement, as if they'd just experienced something truly thrilling. They shouted frantically. But despite their excitement and their continued calls, their next action seemed strange. They all pulled out masks and put them on. Yu and the others were baffled. What the hell was going on? Oh my. Yu, with his sharp eyes, spotted one of them, who had, quite dramatically, pulled out a gas mask and donned it. What's all this for? Why do they look so excited, and why are they wearing masks? The air here is so fresh. Wouldn't it be a waste? That's right, that's right. I think working in this kind of environment will actually extend our lifespans. Serena and the others, though somewhat bewildered, chatted amongst themselves. However, what happened next made them want to take back their words. Just as everyone was eagerly anticipating the outcome, Rika finally dispatched one of the protagonists of this battle. I'm leaving the stinking flower in your care this time. Come out and fight. But as the stinking flower was released, the once fresh air in the garden was immediately filled with a strange odor. They thought the odor was just an illusion, perhaps blown away by the flowing sharp wind. However, everyone present, except the staff, proved that their assumptions were overblown. The odor, far from dissipating with the flowing air, grew even stronger. The unpleasant odor that permeated the air made everyone pinch their noses. What the hell is that smell? Why does it stink? As women, they all had a special understanding of smell. So, when they first caught the whiff, Serena and the others quickly identified the odor. It was clearly a foul odor. Consequently, they all pinched their noses and glanced at the surrounding staff, their eyes filled with resentment. Well, these people were truly wicked. They knew that the Pokémon attains Eureka would send out next would emit such a foul odor, yet they didn't warn them. It would have been fine if they hadn't warned them, but they all put on masks, and even gas masks, even more outrageously. Yu was also affected by the stench. As a warrior, his senses were even more acute. So, when the odor of the stink bug was first sent out, Yu nearly suffocated. He quickly suppressed his sense of smell. Yu, as a warrior, possessed such skills. However, this completely posed a challenge to the others, who could only accept it with a pinched nose. At this moment, the humans and Pokémon on the battlefield bore the brunt of the impact. It's unclear whether Lygia had some special method, or whether, as a trainer of Skank, she had long since grown accustomed to the smell. Her expression remained completely calm, unperturbed. Meanwhile, Ash and Pikachu, both possessed no such composure. Their faces were grimacing, and Ash was practically suffocating. However, The closest person to Skank was not Ash, but Pikachu. Faced with Skank's invisible toxic attack, Pikachu's eyes began to blur, and he began to hallucinate. Fuck. This is unsportsmanlike. What's that smell? It stinks. Lygia, I didn't expect you, a gym trainer like this, to be defeated. Resorting to biological weapons, Ash felt his mind was almost fading. But facing Ash's heartbreaking roar, Rika's delicate face suddenly took on a devilish smile. What do you know, you rude man? Skunky, this is the most primitive, natural scent. It's the most fragrant scent in the world, okay? You don't even know how to appreciate it. As expected, you have no resistance at all. Ash was furious. Unable to defeat him, this guy resorted to such despicable tactics. He immediately ordered Pikachu to fight. However, Pikachu was already somewhat disoriented by the stench, his entire body staggering. The referee, who had donned a gas mask at some point, remained calm and gave the battle orders. Pikachu, wake up. Use 100,000 volts, Ash commanded with difficulty, covering his nose. Skunky, we use Divine Whip. Although Pikachu had heard the orders he'd been trained to give, his body was no longer able to obey. It began to dance unsteadily, but Skank showed no mercy. Taking advantage of this situation, it launched a series of vine whips at Pikachu. As if that wasn't enough, the other party didn't continue the beating, but instead tied Pikachu up. Then, they began to tighten the grip, then slammed him into the air. Unsurprisingly, Pikachu was completely incapacitated by this combined mental and physical blow. I didn't expect Pikachu to be incapacitated just like that. Looks like Xiaozhi is in a bit of danger. Yu couldn't help but frown. Just now, he might have been quite optimistic about Xiaozhi. But now, the other party said that they had sent out Skank, which was really disgusting. It's just a fight, but he even has a poison gas attack. Isn't that a foul? Yu had clearly never encountered such a situation before. Chapter 1014, Fire Dinosaur appears. Gym leader Lygia's skunkle is actually a bit special. The scent it emits is completely natural. As if hearing Yu's muttering, a staff member nearby started explaining, as if he couldn't bear the negative comments about their gym leader. Being caught so suddenly gossiping about someone behind their back made even Yu blush, at a loss for words. Clearly, the staff member wasn't going to let this go. As they talked about their gym leader and the Pokémon, their face lit up with excitement and enthusiasm. I bet you noticed how popular our perfume is when you came in? It's all thanks to Skunkle. Serena and the others seemed drawn to the conversation, their gazes turning towards them. The staff member seemed to enjoy being stared at. He immediately felt the gas mask on his face getting in the way, obscuring his handsome features. His handsome, majestic radiance was obscured by the others, and he didn't care whether he could handle it after removing the mask. The smell still permeated the air. Seeing this, Yu couldn't help but give a thumbs up, praising him. What a warrior. But in such a moment of glory, a warrior's ability to make no mistakes was evident. Before removing his gas mask, he seemed to take a deep breath, then finished his introduction in one breath. The main ingredient in our perfume is the odor of the stinking shrub. The reason we can create such a fragrant perfume is entirely due to the help of the shrub. That odor may seem stinky, but with the addition of some special ingredients, it can be transformed into a variety of scents. In the audience, the female salesperson explained the advantages and benefits of their perfume to Yu. The battle on the field had already entered its second round. Xiaozhi's Pokemon this time was Charmeleon. However, as soon as this Charmeleon was dispatched, Yu's attention, which had been focused on the lecture, was instantly diverted. His eyes narrowed slightly, and then the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. He sensed something, and combined with the previous events, he quickly came to a conclusion. Interesting. I didn't expect Ash's Charmeleon to be quite unruly. Let's see how you can command Charmeleon to fight for you. This Charmeleon was captured by Ash a while ago. When it was still Charmeleon, it was abandoned by its former trainer, but then he persuaded it to fight for you. It only recently evolved into Charmeleon. Before that, Charmeleon was very obedient, but after becoming Charmeleon, it seems to be less obedient to Ash's orders. Xiaozhi also noticed Yu's expression of surprise and interest, so she explained. As a result, not only Yu, but even the others watched the ensuing battle with interest. Charmeleon, recently dispatched by Ash, burst forth with energy from the moment it appeared, unleashing a volley of flames into the air. As the fumes interacted with the flames, sparks could be seen, awe-inspiring, as if they were chemical weapons. Charmeleon, however, would have been fine if it hadn't opened its mouth. As soon as it did, the stench immediately entered its nostrils, causing it to express a nauseous expression. It inhaled forcefully, as if seeking a breath of fresh air, but the stench was so overwhelming that it felt unbearable. Yet, it could do nothing but hop around in place. Looking at its trainer, it revealed a deeply irritated expression. Ash's expression froze upon seeing this, but as a hot-blooded Chuanibao, he was still more concerned about the battle ahead, and immediately pleaded. Charmer, I'm counting on you. This battle, I'm really counting on you. Please help me. Oh, it seems you and your Pokémon aren't getting along very well. In that case, I'll help you end the battle early. Skank uses Solar Blaze. Because of the garden's unique nature, the sunlight outside could penetrate fully, significantly reducing the charging time of Skank's Solar Blaze. Without giving Ash much time to plead with Charmer, it launched a direct attack at Charmer. Charmer was still preoccupied with the battlefield, not anticipating the sudden attack from its opponent. Consequently, Charmer was caught off guard and completely hit by Solar Blaze. Fortunately, Charmer had plenty of energy, plus it was a fire type. It was resistant to the grass-type Sun Flame. Therefore, it instantly rose from the ground. The Sun Flame's impact caused the area around Charmeleon to explode, and the blast's impact cleared the surrounding stench. The instantaneous clearing of the stench, coupled with the sudden attack from the Sun Flame, further fueled Charmeleon's already volatile temper. Blazing flames blazed in its eyes, threatening to incinerate Skank. And yet, it did just that. Without waiting for Ash's command, it launched a merciless attack on Skank. Skank was still recovering from the effects of the Sun Flame, so it took a solid hit from the flame's attack. However, Charmeleon showed no sign of giving up, and continued its attack. After using the Jet Flame, another vortex of flames enveloped it, completely wrapping the vile flower in it. Chapter 1015, Challenge. Skank, incapacitated. The challenger wins. The referee, wearing a gas mask, announced the result. In the previous battle, facing Charmeleon's barrage of attacks, the relatively passive Skank was unable to withstand it. Especially when enveloped in the vortex of flames, the continuous attacks caused Skank to take constant damage. In Charmeleon's rage, the damage output exploded to the extreme, even the surrounding stench was temporarily blocked by Charmeleon. Skank was, unsurprisingly, incapacitated. You, why are you leaving like this? Yes. According to your usual practice, should the trainer challenge every gym they encounter? At least that's what you did on your previous trips to other areas. Yu, who had greeted Xiaozhi after the gym battle and then walked out without mentioning anything, but he was determined to fight. Serena and couldn't help but pop their heads out from either side, curiously asking. Well, let's think about it, let's forget it. That gym trainer's already acting like that. If I challenge him again, wouldn't that be taking advantage of him? Yu said this seriously, but his thoughts were different. Do you really think I'm stupid? Challenging him in this situation, what if that weird gym trainer sends out another Pokemon with bioweapons like Skank? That would be really troublesome. His own Pokemon aren't like him, they can't block their sense of smell. He doesn't want his lovely Pokemon to suffer. Well, Yu certainly wouldn't admit he was a little scared of a Pokemon like Skank, a Pokemon with bioweapons. After all, Skank has already reached this level, so how much more terrifying would Skank's evolutionary counterpart, Viperflower, be? He wouldn't expect his team to be wiped out the moment it's released. Just thinking about it was a bit chilling. Yu couldn't help but shudder at the mere thought. Yu, wait for me. Don't walk so fast. Did you see I won the Rainbow Gym and earned the gym badge? Xiaozhi ran over, a little breathless, but still full of excitement. How about a Pokemon battle with me? I'm quite powerful, too, but before Yu could even say anything, Xiaoxia attacked with lightning speed. She mercilessly and viciously grabbed Xiaozhi's ear and yanked him aside. Alright, Xiaozhi, just go cool off. With your current strength, defeat Xiaomao first. Besides, after the gym battle just now, you don't need to rest. Pikachu, don't those heroes need to rest too? Xiaoxia was worthy of being Xiaoxia. Under her dominance, Xiaozhi dared not say a word and could only follow behind, muttering silently. Ha, seeing Xiaozhi's aggrieved expression, like that of a young wife, everyone present couldn't help but burst out in laughter. Even Pikachu, who had lost his ability to fight earlier in the battle, though now weak, joined in the laughter. Amidst this lively atmosphere, Yu and his group returned to the Rainbow Gym's Pokémon Center. After getting a room from Miss Joy, they gathered again. As for where they met, this time, it was, of course, a restaurant perfect for eating, drinking, and chatting. As for why they only booked one room, it was because most rooms at these Pokémon centers are triple occupancy. Yu's arrival was perfect for him to share with Xiaozhi and Xiaoguang, and that room was reserved entirely for the girls. As for Xiaomao, being a wealthy young man, he had booked a single room with Miss Joy. After they finished packing and emerged from their room, Xiaomao ran into them, having just finished a call. Xiaomao seemed to have found comfort in his grandfather, or perhaps he had grasped something from his words. His expression was less down, and a confident look returned to his face. And it seemed that after this round of scolding, Xiaomao's arrogant temper had subsided considerably. At least a few hours ago, he was far different from what he was now. While this might still fall short of a perfect persona, it was only the beginning, and everything was off to a good start. Xiaomao, having grown up with a kid, and after being teased by Xiaoxia, intentionally or not, he had just made up his mind to change his temper, but now he couldn't contain himself anymore. Without a second thought, he challenged Yu to Pokémon battle. Yu, please join me in a Pokémon battle. I heard from Grandpa that you're incredibly powerful now, far surpassing me. But I still want to know just how strong you are. That way, I can have a target to catch up to. So, please send out your strongest Pokémon and battle me. Xiaomao's face was serious, and his words were tinged with earnestness. The once lively atmosphere suddenly quieted, and I stared at Xiaomao, who now looked serious with surprise. Xiaozhi, however, was not afraid of any challenge. Seeing Xiaomao challenge Yu, he immediately challenged him to Pokémon battle. Yu, I'm the same way. I also hope to battle you. I want to see, like Xiaomao, the gap between us, so I can have a target to catch up to. Misty didn't attack Xiaozhi again this time, but simply watched the situation unfold quietly. Faced with a challenge from two people who were like younger brothers to him, Yu, with his belligerent personality, would have accepted without hesitation. But this time he did seem a little hesitant, looking at the two people quietly. Chapter 1016 Worry. Yu faced the challenge from these two men, who were like younger brothers to him. In the past, with his belligerent nature, he would have accepted without hesitation. However, this time, he seemed a little hesitant, staring at them quietly. Facing Yu's gaze, Xiaozhi and Xiaomao weren't as calm as usual. Instead, a hint of nervousness and anticipation filled their expressions. At this moment, Yu also understood a lot from their gazes. As they locked eyes, Yu's mind began to understand a lot. Indeed, this is what makes Pokémon battles so exciting. I accept your challenge. I will fight you with all my might. Really? That's fantastic, I'd love to. We'll also fight you with all our might. Xiaomao and Xiaozhi were both incredibly excited when Yu accepted their request. Even those who had previously disliked each other exchanged high fives in perfect unison. Yu smiled faintly upon seeing this. He immediately, ignoring the two men, who were still incredibly excited, stated his thoughts. I agree to your battle request, but I have one condition. What condition? Yu, just tell me. Not just one, even two or three, I'll agree. Xiaozhi, still in his excitement, blurted out the answer without a second thought. Xiaomao, though somewhat critical of Xiaozhi's immediate agreement, nodded nonetheless. My condition is very simple. I want both of you to fight me together. It's like I'll fight too, and you two will fight together. If you can defeat me, I lose. Xiaozhi and Xiaomao were both stunned. They had anticipated all the conditions Yu might propose, but they hadn't expected this one. It wasn't just them. Even Xiaoguang and Xiaoxia were stunned, having never expected such a request. Serena and the others were certainly used to it, and could only shake their heads with a wry smile. Yu had struck again. Don't refuse yet. I know what you're going to say. But, didn't you say before that my strength is vastly inferior to yours? If that's the case, how can you possibly win if it's not a 2-on-1 duel? And since it's all about the difference, wouldn't this be more effective? Yu smiled faintly, then a confident grin spread across his face. If you can't even beat me 2-on-1, then there's no way you can beat me 1-on-1. Xiaomao and Xiaozhi fell silent, but that was a tacit agreement. Time slipped by, and Xiaozi's Pokémon, whom they had been waiting for, had recovered. Afterward, everyone headed to the battle arena in the backyard of the Pokémon Center. Xiaomao and Xiaozi stood side by side, looking across at Yu. Xiaoguang, however, acted as the referee with all his gentlemanly demeanor. Actually, this was Xiaoguang's own initiative. As a Pokémon breeder and gym trainer, he wanted to watch the battle between these young people up close. Otherwise, it would be a 2-on-1 battle, and there wouldn't be any need for a referee. Whoever wins wins. Then let me send out my Pokémon first. Suicune, get ready to fight. I didn't expect you to actually send out your strongest. And Suicune right from the start, looking at Suicune, who had already been sent out to the battlefield, striding gracefully and gazing at them, Xiaozhi and Xiaomao's expressions were extremely solemn. Because of Yu's previous experience, they knew a lot about Suicune's role as a legendary beast this time. Then I'll leave it to you, my friend Squirtle. Pikachu has decided to be yours. Xiaomao and Xiaozi also sent out their starting Pokémon simultaneously. Wow, Yu didn't expect he had Suicune. Xiaoxia, who was watching from outside, had her eyes already turned into hearts. If it weren't for the people around her holding her back, she would have rushed in and embraced Suicune, regardless of the situation on the field. Water Pokémon were the favorites of Misty, who aspired to become a Water Pokémon Master. Furthermore, they were legendary water Pokémons. However, under the constant persuasion of the three women around her, Misty's excitement gradually cooled. The women then gathered together, whispering to each other as they watched the battle unfold. From time to time, one could hear Misty's surprised exclamations. Ash, Xiaomao, let you attack first. Let me see how strong you are. Xiaomao and Xiaozi didn't refuse. After a tacit exchange of glances, they decisively issued the order. Pikachu, use 100,000 volts. Squirtle, use Bubble Beam. Suicune, use Freeze Beam. Having already promised Ash and Xiaomao, Yu would undoubtedly bring out his strongest Pokémon, without reservation. While he already possessed many Pokémon of comparable strength in the top tier, Suicune's strength was undeniable. The most important point is that Suicune can undergo a special bond evolution with him. This allows for a burst of immense combat power in a short period of time. Yu could be considered prepared. After all, although he had watched Ash's previous battle, he might still have some hidden cards up his sleeve. If he were to go 1-on-2 and fail, it would be a disgrace. 100,000 volts and Bubble Beam attack from both directions, blocking Suicune's escape routes. But Suicune, a veteran of many battles, knew what to do after hearing his trainer's orders. With a sudden toss of his head, he unleashed a sweeping freezing beam, blocking both attacks. However, the battle didn't stop there. After neutralizing both attacks, Suicune unleashed freezing beam again, this time at an even more challenging angle. While the two Pokémon were still on guard, Suicune arrived in front of them and sent them flying. Squirtle, Pikachu, Xiaomao and Xiaozi couldn't help but worry and exclaimed in unison. Chapter 1017, Full Strength. Pikachu. The two Pokémon, flung away by the freeze beam attack, didn't immediately lose their combat capability. While their bodies felt slightly heavy and painful, they quickly recovered and climbed to their feet. This also showed that these two Pokémon still had some strength, otherwise, ordinary Pokémon would have been instantly incapacitated by Suicune's freeze beam attack. However, Suicune's attack didn't cause the two trainers any fear or anxiety. Instead, their fighting spirit surged, their eyes blazing with fierce fighting intent. Pikachu, use 100,000 volts again. Kumi, use water cannon. Ash and Squirtle exchanged a glance, their prejudices set aside, and they resolved to fight together against the enemy before them, Yu. Thus, at that moment, they subconsciously reached a consensus and prepared to fight together. They didn't intend to fight separately, lest they be defeated one by Yu and Suicune, which would have been disastrous. Oh. I didn't expect these two, who almost quarreled upon meeting, to actually start cooperating. Yu noticed the tacit understanding between Satoshi and Shiro across from him, and his lips curled up slightly. Great. This was the kind of battle he'd been hoping for. It was also what he'd wanted to teach them through this fight. He hadn't expected them to be so cooperative so quickly, given such a chance encounter. It really was like these two had grown up together. Despite feeling deeply moved, Yu had no intention of holding back and gave Suicune his own orders. Suicune, use Freeze Beam. The same move again? It's completely ineffective against my Pikachu. My Squirtle does the same. You really underestimate us. Watching their familiar attack unfold once again, Satoshi and Shiro's faces lit up with confidence. As they finished speaking, their skills began to clash. However, this time, the clash was somewhat unexpected. The freeze beam didn't hit Pikachu and Suicune with the same precision as last time. Pikachu's 100,000 volts and Squirtle's water cannon merged in midair, forming a hydro cannon. This combination was incredibly powerful, and when it collided with the freeze beam couldn't withstand the combined hydro cannon, instead scattering it and charging towards Suicune. Suicune was instantly sent flying backwards by the hydro cannon's attack. However, he wasn't as disastrous as Pikachu and Squirtle had been. His limbs pressed against the ground, leaving 4 deep marks. You're quite capable indeed. If that's the case, Suicune, let's go all out. Seeing his master's serious expression, Suicune didn't hesitate. He nodded earnestly. Wow. What's this? Suicune can evolve, I can't help it. Suicune is so cool. Misty, who hadn't seen the spectacle before, couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. But as the glow of Suicune's Mega Evolution faded, her previously suppressed love for water Pokémon was rekindled. I've heard there's a Mega Evolution in the Kalos region that allows Pokémon that have already reached their final form to evolve again. It looks like it's something like this, as the referee, Brock, after all, was a former gym trainer at the Night Gym. He had some knowledge of other regions. So, after witnessing Suicune's Mega Evolution, he was only briefly surprised before he finally understood. Even he, who is usually quite calm, couldn't help but blush. Xiaomao and Xiaozhi were completely stunned. The excitement they had felt when Suicune was injured by the fusion gauge hydro cannon had completely vanished from their faces. All that was left was complete astonishment. Xiaomao and Xiaozhi, both young and energetic, possessed a remarkable resilience. After their initial shock, they were replaced by pure excitement. Is this your true strength? If so, let me defeat you. My Pikachu is the strongest. I will become the world's greatest Pokémon Master. Xiaozhi and Xiaomao shouted their declarations. The battle, which had calmed down somewhat due to Yu and Suicune's Mega Evolution, once again returned to a tense atmosphere. Pikachu, use Flash. Squirtle, use Charge. Suicune, dodge. Facing the relentless attacks from Squirtle and Pikachu, Yu didn't rush to order Suicune to counterattack, but instead quietly defended and dodged. Even without Suicune launching any attacks, the sheer volume of dodging was enough to tire Pikachu and Squirtle. There were even a couple of times when Squirtle and Pikachu nearly collided, making for a dreadful scene. However, the more this happened, the more the two trainers' fighting spirit and unwillingness were aroused. Therefore, Pikachu, keep using Flash. Squirtle, let's use Spin. Both trainers grew anxious, and the orders continued to be issued. But despite their frantic efforts, Pikachu and Squirtle still couldn't hit Suicune. Pikachu, use Flash. Spin. Suicune, get out of the way. Flash, Iron Tail, Charge, Spin, dodge. And then there's Water Pillar. What's wrong with these three? Glancing at the three trainers, who were now visibly excited on the battlefield, the other onlookers, drawn in by the fierce battle, couldn't help but twitch their lips. But it's true, it's precisely because of this kind of battle, the tacit cooperation between the trainers and Pokémon, that the group of spectators, even if they are just watching, still get excited. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 1018, Ambitions. Pikachu. After a flurry of attacks, Pikachu and Squirtle were already exhausted and panting. Meanwhile, Suicune continued to stroll leisurely, taking graceful steps as he watched the two Pokémon across from him. This wasn't just the case between Pokémon, it was also the case between trainers. Yuyu's lips curled slightly as he looked at the now obegone Satoshi and Shigeki. While this was a battle between Pokémon, it was also a battle between trainers. There was even a certain degree of synchronicity between trainers, and even trainers would feel exhausted. What? Is this all you have? If that's the case, then I won't stay any longer. Suicune, End this battle. Yu could see a hint of disappointment in his tone. After all, he hadn't yet fully enjoyed it. Huff, huff, huff. Satoshi was already panting with exhaustion. Xiaomao, on the other hand, actually still had the energy to respond at this moment. Stop looking down on me. You still want to end the fight like this, really? Suicune, someone looks down on you, Yu, without the slightest hint of anger, instead shouted at Suicune. At this moment, only Suicune could be seen. His eyes, which had been slightly gentle as he looked at Pikachu, suddenly became extremely sharp. Suicune's gaze sent chills down Pikachu and Squirtle's spines. It was the look of someone being stared at by a terrifying gaze. In the face of such overwhelming power, they seemed like weaklings. Pikachu and Squirtle groaned inwardly, looking at their trainer with a hint of resentment. Okay, aren't you guys talking without any worries while fighting? How dare you speak so provocatively? Do you think we're not dying fast enough, or that we can still be saved? However, at this moment, despite such resentful thoughts, they still felt a surge of resentment. But faced with Suicune's impending attack, they were forced to respond. However, Suicune seemed genuinely enraged, showing no intention of holding back. At this point, without needing a command from their trainer, Yu, Suicune responded on his own. A single water cannon blasted directly at the two Pokémon. Pikachu, Kami, Squirtle and Pikachu unleashed their 100,000 volts in water cannon once again, fusing the two mid-air into hydro cannon. However, facing the water bubble attack, even the hydro cannon, fueled by the fusion agent, proved vulnerable. After only a moment's resistance, it was completely shattered by the water cannon, leaving only a faint trail of rising mist and a faint, flickering arc of electricity in its wake. Unexpectedly, their fusion abilities were shattered so quickly, leaving Pikachu and Squirtle breathing in the brief respite from their attacks. Therefore, the arrival of Water Cannon caught the two Pokémon off guard. The power of the skill was too overwhelming, blasting the ground and kicking up a cloud of dust, shrouding the outcome in mystery. However, that veil was lifted for a moment, and when the dust cleared, only Pikachu and Squirtle were revealed, unsurprisingly incapacitated. Pikachu, Squirtle is incapacitated. Yu wins. Xiaoguang, conscientious and responsible, immediately announced the outcome of the battle. Seeing his opponent incapacitated, Suicune glowed and disengaged its Mega Evolution. Wow, Yu, when did you get Suicune? You didn't even tell me. You know I love water Pokemon the most. As soon as the outcome of the battle was announced, Misty expertly pounced on Yu, clinging to him and lashing out with incessant scolding. Yu immediately offered comfort, introducing his Suicune to Misty before letting them play together. Yu now looked at the two defeated trainers. I didn't expect the gap between us to be so huge. While Xiaozi's strength isn't great, he's only slightly weaker than mine. Yet, the two of us combined couldn't even defeat one of Yu's Pokémon. Xiaomao couldn't help but chuckle, his words dripping with self-deprecation. It was only then that he realized how arrogant he had been before, brimming with pride over such a small achievement. Xiaozi didn't say anything, but his face, hidden by his hat, was etched with dejection. Alright, stop looking so dejected. It's just that I defeated you, right? It's not something to be ashamed of. You know, I've defeated many people, many stronger than you. Yu placed a hand on the two boys' shoulders, offering comfort in a light-hearted tone. Besides, when I was your age, I didn't even need to travel. You should just be content. Enjoy every time you fight alongside your Pokémon. That way, your strength will definitely improve. Yu persuaded them a lot, but it was obvious that his persuasion was effective. At least the depressed expressions on the two boys' faces began to gradually ease, and they regained their fighting spirit. Confidence appeared on their handsome faces again. Well, we won't be defeated so easily. That's right. My goal is to become the world's #1 Pokémon Master. How can this mere failure defeat me? Yes, it's this momentum. Then let's move towards our respective goals. Yu was completely infected by this atmosphere at this time, and couldn't help but join them. Yu, you've already agreed. When I become stronger, you must have another Pokémon battle with me. I will definitely not lose again then. Tisk, you have no ambition at all. Yu, when I win the Pokémon League tournament in the Kanto region, that's when I'll challenge you and defeat you again. Chapter 1019 Separation. The next day, Yu, like the previous two times, didn't plan to stay in Rainbow City for long. After all, With a passage of several days, the Kalos region Pokémon League tournament was only 2 weeks away. This was why the scene unfolded at the Pokémon Center in Rainbow City. After yesterday's battle, once Ash and Mo had calmed down and left the injured Pikachu and Squirtle to Miss Joy for treatment, they returned to the table and began chatting. The atmosphere was quite lively for a while. As if this wasn't enough, someone suggested heading to a bonfire and barbecue somewhere on the outskirts of Rainbow City. Aside from Pikachu and Squirtle, who had been sent to Miss Joy for treatment, all the other Pokémon joined in the fun. Meanwhile, upon seeing another legendary beast, Moltres, everyone except Serena and the other two were shocked. At this moment, Xiaozhi and Xiaomao made a deeper resolve, realizing just how vast a gap between themselves and Yu truly was. Perhaps this Moltres wasn't as powerful as Suicune, but wasn't being able to subdue a legendary beast a testament to strength? The evening passed in this cheerful atmosphere. Yu, are you planning on going to my grandfather's lab? In that case, let's say goodbye here. I have some things to do, so I won't be going back to my grandfather's lab just yet. The beginning of a gathering at the Pokémon Center also marked the beginning of a farewell. Perhaps because they knew they were leaving, everyone had woken up early to wash up and, after another morning meal, it was already time to leave. Xiaomao, standing outside the Pokémon Center, was the first to leave. Even the proud Xiaomao seemed deeply reluctant to leave. After all, besides Xiaozhi, he hadn't had much time to see Yu. After all, Xiaomao and Yu had formed a deep friendship during his stay at Professor Oak's lab. This sudden reunion and subsequent separation still seemed incredibly hard to part. Yes, Yu glanced at Xiaomao, who now looked reluctant yet still possessed by a proud expression, wanting to say something but unable to. He patted his shoulder, saying nothing. Come on, don't look at me like that. After all, it's not a life or death situation. If you're free, or if I win the Kalos Pokémon League tournament, we can still meet again, right? Well, good luck at the Kalos Pokémon League tournament. If I have time, I'll definitely go cheer you on. Xiaomao said this with a sincere expression, but ultimately, unable to bear the atmosphere of parting, he turned away, his back to the crowd, and headed off in a certain direction. He waved his hand gracefully, leaving no trace behind as he continued on his journey. Shortly after Xiaomao's departure, Yu also announced his departure. Xiaozhi and Xiaomisty, two of Yu's closest friends, also expressed a sense of reluctance. Misty, in particular, even considered abandoning Xiaozhi and joining Yu's team. However, she was eventually persuaded to leave. Parting is always sad, and although he'd already experienced many farewells during his travels, Xiaozhi felt a surge of reluctance at this moment. However, Xiaozhi had grown considerably during his travels. Facing the impending departure, he didn't hesitate, instead offering his sincere blessings. Yu, you must do your best at the Kalos Region Pokémon League tournament. I'll definitely be there to watch you compete. Xiaozhi was clearly upset, but he managed a smile. I will. I'll be waiting for you then. Yu stepped forward and gave Yu a big hug. Of course, without favoring one over the other, he also gave Xiaomisty a big hug. Good luck in your upcoming Pokémon gym battles, Ash. I hope you can successfully collect 8 gym badges and qualify to challenge the Kanto Pokémon League. If I have enough time, I'd like to challenge the Kanto Pokémon League as well. So, please do your best. I hope you'll amaze me when we meet again. Yu's revelation astonished everyone present. No one could have imagined Yu's ambitions were so vast. The tiny Kalos region couldn't hold him back any longer. After conquering Kalos, he even wanted to challenge the Kanto region. However, this revelation did indeed make Ash, who had been feeling somewhat depressed, instantly excited again. Yu, then, we'll be rivals. Don't worry, I won't let you down. Looking at Ash, who seemed to have grown immensely in that moment, Yu said nothing more. He simply extended his right hand, clenching it into a fist. Xiaozhi was quite enlightened at this moment. He also extended his right hand and clenched it into a fist, bumping it with Yu's. It's a deal then. Well, then, let's part ways now, because they had to catch a flight back to Pallet Town. Yu, along with Xiaoxia and the other two, set off for the airport. Let's go. Our journey has just begun. Don't worry, this separation is only for a better reunion in the future. Although Xiaoxia and Xiaoguang were reluctant to leave, they quickly composed themselves. They stood on either side of Xiaozhi and spoke. You're right. The journey has just begun. Our journey doesn't end here, Xiaoguang. Which gym are we going to challenge next? Let me see. The closest gym to Rainbow City is the Gold Gym in Golden City. Gold Gym? Okay, in that case, your Gold Gym will be next. What are you all still standing there for? Let's pack up and get on the road. I don't want to be left too far behind by you and Xiaomao. Chapter 1020 Promotion. Time flew by, slipping through the cracks of a finger. Half a month passed in the blink of an eye. During this time, Yu, after parting ways with Xiaozhi and the others at Rainbow, took the same flight back to Pallet Town. Upon returning to Professor Oak's lab, Yu didn't leave immediately after a day or two like he had done previously. Instead, he stayed there for several days, waiting until 2 days before the Kalos Pokemon League tournament to depart. He boarded a flight to Mire City in the Kalos region. This was entirely due to Mire City being an international metropolis in Kalos, and the many flights there saved him a lot of hassle. During his time at Professor Oak's lab, Yu made no effort to train his Pokemon. To better train his Pokemon, he even asked Professor Oak for a small area in the mountains behind the lab for specialized training. The small area Yu was heading to seemed like a good spot, with mountains, water, and forests, perfect for Pokemon battles of all kinds. This was actually why Yu hadn't rushed to leave Professor Oak's lab after returning. It was simply because the lab had better facilities, making it much more convenient. Furthermore, Professor Oak, a renowned Pokemon researcher and former Kanto regional champion, was there, a significant benefit for Yu. Professor Oak was delighted that Yu could stay at his lab for special training, and welcomed this development. Besides Professor Oak's optimism about the young trainer, it was also driven by the exceptional Pokemon Yu possessed. Not to mention other unique and rare Pokemon, just the legendary Suicune and Moltres alone were enough to make Professor Oak salivate. From then on, he engaged in a daily battle of wits with Yu. In other words, during Yu's free time, he'd tried every possible means to borrow Moltres or Suicune for Pokemon research. Of course, Professor Oak wasn't the kind of person who wouldn't hesitate to pursue his own interests. He was, after all, a very kind and capable elder. Yu naturally sought advice from a trainer as skilled as Professor Oak on Pokemon training, consulting him almost daily whenever he had free time. During the few days of special training, Professor Oak would take time out to offer Yu guidance and help train Pokemon whenever he had the time. Of course, there were some minor conditions. During this process, he had to study the Pokemon himself. However, Professor Oak managed to balance research and training without any delays. In fact, with Professor Oak's help, Yu's Pokemon strengths improved significantly. It's worth noting that after nearly 6 months of travel, the little Buzzbit had finally accumulated a considerable amount of skills. Especially with Professor Oak's help and guidance, Buzzbit finally broke free from its long-held constraints and evolved directly into Sonic Dragon, reaching the level of a Quasi-King. Even with just a little more power, it could break through the Quasi-King barrier and reach the level of a king. Facing Buzzbit. Oh, no. It should be called Sonic Dragon now. Such a rapid increase in power is due not only to Buzzbit's own efforts, but also to Professor Oak's contributions. Ditto has also seen a significant increase in power, thanks to its unique advantages as a shiny Pokemon. Besides Buzzbit and Ditto, the biggest improvement has been made by Snorlax. Although Snorlax was also recently hatched from a Pokemon egg, its combat power is no less impressive. And it's even more rare. Under Professor Oak's meticulous training, Snorlax has unexpectedly reached the level of a Quasi-King. Another point is that Moltres' strength was already slightly below Grand Champion level, and after this period of travel, it had matured considerably. As the opportunity arose, Yu decided to further enhance Moltres' power. Through repeated battles with Professor Oak's Pokemon, Moltres gradually broke through its limits, successfully reaching semi-champion level. With this, Yu finally had a powerful and exceptional Pokemon to dominate the field. While Yu could have achieved similar levels of power with these Pokemon improvements, it wouldn't be as easy as it was with the current team. It would require some time to accumulate experience. But Professor Oak, true to his profession, with his dual roles as a researcher and Pokemon trainer, quickly found a way to improve Pokemon's strength. However, his methods were limited. While they might work in the early stages, in the later stages, it would require the combined efforts of both Pokemon and trainer. This method was only suitable for Pokemon below the elite level. Yu didn't think much of it. After all, the fact that his Pokemon had improved was enough to satisfy him. Although he preferred to rely on himself to improve his Pokémon strength, if he had someone to guide him, why not? After all, exploring on his own was far too difficult. And while Professor Oak contributed to this, the majority of the credit also lay with the efforts of himself and his Pokémon. Besides the Pokémon's improved strength, another point was that Yu had finally mastered the special bond between him and Suicune. With his successful mastery, it became much easier for Yu to bond evolve with Suicune. It wasn't as strenuous as before, and even the duration of this state had increased significantly. Chapter 1021 Encounter. Kalos, I'm back, sitting in the plane, gazing out the window at the unique Kalos scenery, Yu's smile widened. With the progress he'd made over the past 2 weeks, Yu felt even more confident about competing in the Pokémon League. After all, he hadn't wasted those 2 weeks. Touching the 6 Pokéballs strapped to his waist, Yu felt a surge of pride well up in his heart. The plane soon landed at the Mire City airport. Mire City was even busier than when Yu and his companions had arrived. Even looking down from the plane, one could still see the massive building rising from the Mire City square. This massive structure would be the venue for the upcoming Kalos Pokémon League tournament, constructed a month after the announcement. From then on, contestants from all over would compete on this final stage, vying for the ultimate glory. All this hard work had been just for this moment, to stand on this massive stage and compete against the masters from all over. After leaving the airport, Yu, Serena, and the other 2 girls didn't immediately rush to the Pokémon Center to check in. Instead, they arrived at the venue for the final Kalos Pokémon contest, gazing at the magnificent building rising from the ground. Yu's eyes flickered as he recalled every moment of his journey. The encounters with every Pokémon, the battles with every type of trainer, and the hardships and dedication of challenging every gym, it was all worth it. The final stage, Yu, reeling from his memories, beamed with excitement. At that moment, he couldn't help but feel his blood boiling. Serena and the other 2 girls were also struck by the vast arena rising from the ground. After all, compared to the more restricted Pokémon show, the more official Pokémon League tournament was a much larger event. After all, Pokémon trainers still made up the majority of the population in this world. This also revealed the sheer size of this arena, built in just a month. Is this the scale of the Pokémon League tournament? It's truly grand. So impressive, there's no comparison to the Pokémon show. It's truly a fierce clash. Serena and Air were the most deeply moved, having participated in Pokémon shows before. Despite this sentimental atmosphere, Yu and his companions didn't immediately leave, but instead walked around the venue, familiarizing themselves with the area to avoid any mishaps during the tournament. Because the venue couldn't be entered until the opening ceremony, no one was allowed in during that time, not even the contestants. Staff were stationed at every intersection to block entry. Even so, outside the venue, a large crowd gathered. They were either spectators or trainers about to compete. Hey, isn't that Yu? It's been a long time no see. Yan Yi, Yan Rong, Xiaozin. The visitors were none other than the Yan Rong brothers and Air's older brother, Xiaozin. Just because you're here means you've collected all 8 gym badges, right? Xiaozin glanced at her sister, not going forward to greet her. Instead, she looked at Yu, her tone still as aggressive as ever. Well, don't you see who I am? I already collected all 8 badges a month ago, Yu said, waving his badge collection box in front of them. Tisk, what's so great about that? It's just 8 gym badges, isn't it? Every trainer who comes here has already collected all 8. Believe it or not, almost anyone here already has all 8. Yu's words made Xiaozin even more upset. Well, you bastard. You took away the cabbage I've worked so hard to take care of for so many years, and you actually collected all 8 gym badges a month early. And you didn't even see my little cabbage come home to visit me. The more she thought about it, the angrier she became. Xiaozin was practically going crazy. In just 1 month, her sister hadn't had any contact at all. You bastard, you better pray you don't meet me in the first round of the elimination round, or I'll make you pack your bags and leave right then and there. Don't worry, that won't happen. Even if it does, I'll definitely defeat you, Yu retorted, unyielding. Yu, it's time to settle our score. I hope you don't get eliminated so soon. Yan Yi, who had been nagging about this for so long, finally spoke the truth, but the moment he opened his mouth, the tension was palpable. Yan Yi was still resentful of his previous defeat to Yu. Don't worry. I hope you can hold on until the day we fight, Yi Yu was unfazed. After all, compared to Yan Yi, Yi Yu was more interested in his brother. Although they had known each other since their trip, they had never clashed. Despite this lack of fighting, Yi Yu had a hunch that Yan Rong was incredibly strong and a formidable opponent. And that strange Zhao Zin, ever since he learned Air was traveling with him for training, had been treating him with a sullen expression. But Yi Yu could not deny that he, too, sensed a powerful and threatening aura from him. That's it, then. Yi Yu, I'm also looking forward to fighting you. Let's work together. Unlike the other two, Yan Rong's words were often pointed and charged, but instead, he was gentle and friendly. Yan Rong left with Zhao Zin and Yan Yi. After staying there for a while, Yi Yu also left with Serena and the other two girls. However, this time they did not go to the Pokémon Center, but to the players' village built for the Pokémon League competition. Chapter 1022 Relaxation. The Players' Village. As its name suggests, this is an area specially designated by the League for the participating players to live in. Of course, this so-called Players' Village wasn't built by the League, it already existed. They simply rented out surrounding hotels and villas to serve as accommodation for the Pokémon League tournament players. All expenses are covered by the League, so players don't have to pay anything, they just need to register with Ms. Joy at the Pokémon Center. Even accompanying companions can stay free of charge, with no additional cost. The players' village was already bustling with activity, filled with powerful Pokémon and trainers. Even Pokémon of all kinds could be seen in this village. Some gathered in small groups of familiar faces, while others were already warming up before competing in Pokémon challenges. Others were already training with their Pokémon, striving to reach peak performance. So many Pokémon, and so many I've never seen before. Yi Yu, look at that Pokémon. Why haven't I seen it before? That's a shockwave. It's recently discovered Pokémon from the Sinnoh region. Yi Yu and the others discussed this as they walked to the registration office in the contestant village. This is truly a tournament held by the Pokémon League. If it were a Pokémon show, it wouldn't be this impressive. Indeed, after all, this tournament is more official. It's a major annual event, and you can see so many powerful trainers just looking around. Those trainers have to win at least 8 gyms and earn badges to get here. Their strength isn't something you'd find on some street bug-catching kid or some random person. A cheerful voice suddenly boomed from behind them. Nobuno, why are you here? Yi Yu was surprised by the arrival of this person, but even more delighted. It was Nobuno, the Dragon Master, whom he had set as his rival, and also a very powerful Pokémon trainer. You're asking for no reason. Of course, we're here to compete in the Pokémon League. You didn't think you were the only one to collect 8 gym badges, did you? Yu Longzhen gave Yi Yu a sullen look, but then he lunged forward, wrapping his arms around Yi Yu's neck and even pushing Serena and the other two aside. Long time no see, Yi Yu. I really want to have a Pokémon battle with you right now. Yi Yu's lower body was so solid that he remained motionless even after being pounced on, but a cheerful smile spread across his face. Yes, I'm looking forward to fighting you too. I hope your strength improves, otherwise I'd be very disappointed. Don't worry, don't worry. I'm sure I'll surprise you. How about we have a battle right now? Yi Yu suggested. Forget it, forget it. Now is not the time for Pokémon battles. If you want to, let's wait until the tournament. I hope we'll have the chance to meet and fight. Okay, then don't get eliminated so early. I'll be waiting for you, okay? Why are you guys still outside? Come on, let's go in and register. Yu Longzhen then dragged Yi Yu and the others into the registration office at the Athletes' Village to register and receive their room keys. The Athletes' Village was very well equipped, with all the necessary Pokémon battle facilities. There was also a gym, swimming pool, video room, resource room, and library. In short, it was luxurious. You could find practically anything you could imagine. This is too luxurious, don't overthink it. Let's go see a movie first. Afterwards, let's go have dinner, Serena was the first to suggest. Alright, Yi Yu didn't refuse, agreeing readily, considering it a final relaxation before the battle. However, before they walked far, they immediately ran into an acquaintance. Yi Yu, where are you going? Yan Rong still had a warm smile on his face, but he was a little curious about them. Beside him were Yan Yi and Zhao Zin. Especially when Zhao Zin saw that his sister was still following Yi Yu, his face immediately turned dark again. Then, without saying a word, he immediately stepped forward, grabbed Air, and started dragging her in his direction. "Brother, what are you doing?" "You, Serena and I are planning to go to the movies." It would have been better if Ayer hadn't said this, but Xiaozin's face immediately became even gloomier and scary. Someone really has plenty of time. The competition is about to start, and yet he still has time to pick up girls and watch a movie. How leisurely. But before you could say anything, Ayer spoke up first. "Brother, what's wrong with watching a movie? Isn't that what we asked for? Besides, Yu has been training for so long, he needs to relax. A movie? Sure, join us." Xiaozin's eyes were reddened, like a volcano about to erupt. "Brother, why are you joining us? Don't you hate watching movies?" "I need to relax even though I'm tense." "No," Xiaozin glared at her shrewd sister. Ayer subconsciously shrank her head at the glare, looking at Yu with a pleading look. "Hey, why is it so lively here? I heard you guys say you're going to the movies? If you don't mind, I'll come with you." Yulong's eye suddenly appeared out of nowhere and spoke first without waiting for Yu to say anything, acting very familiar. "Okay, in that case, let's all go together and relax before the game." At this time, Yanrong also spoke first, not allowing others to raise any opinions, and just took the lead and headed towards the film and television building. Let's go. We do need to relax before the game and don't be too tense. However, after today and the opening ceremony tomorrow, we will all be rivals." Chapter 1023 Registration. The Pokemon League tournament was in full swing. Yu and his companions arrived just the day before the tournament. Today was the opening ceremony, held before every Pokemon League tournament. This opening ceremony would last just one day. After the ceremony, the actual Pokemon tournament would begin, and that was when the real action would begin. After relaxing yesterday, the group, knowing that the opening ceremony would take place today, retired to their rooms early to rest. So, after breakfast in the athletes' village, they gathered together in perfect harmony to watch the opening ceremony. The opening ceremony of the league tournament was more than just a speech, it marked the beginning of a grand ceremony. Torchbearers would carry the torch, and this relay would take place over the course of the day. Of course, the torch relay wouldn't begin until at least noon. However, today, they could also visit the athlete registration area to draw their next opponent. "Yu, I hope I can play against you." Xiaozin's expression remained bleak at this point. "I hope so," Yu replied calmly, then took the lead in entering the player registration area. Serena and the other two girls didn't follow, as the live broadcast was being broadcast from the players' village. Yu was afraid they would be too tired, so he let them stay in the players' village and watch the entire live broadcast. It's unclear if it was coincidence, but this time, on his way to the newbie registration area, Yu once again ran into the Yanrong brothers, Xiaozin, and Yulong's, which led to the scene that just happened. It's true, though, that Yu and his group weren't the only ones taking the tournament seriously. The moment they stepped through the gate, they saw many trainers and their Pokemon standing by the player registration area. There are quite a lot of people, of course. I heard there are over 200 trainers participating in this year's Pokemon League tournament, over 200. Just imagine, from those 200, only 64 will be selected to compete in the top 64. You can imagine how fierce the competition will be. According to the nature of previous Pokemon League tournaments, an elimination process would immediately begin among the competitors. Winners advance, and losers are eliminated. Of course, elimination isn't immediate. It's divided into 3 rounds. If you win all of them, you'll definitely advance, but if you lose, you can still win later and make a comeback, and still have a chance of advancing. Therefore, the competition is even more intense. After all, it's all about vying for a spot on the top 64. As they spoke of this, the expressions on Yu and the others' faces involuntarily grew solemn. Over 200 trainers. Their abilities are truly impressive. They've all earned at least 8 gym badges, earning the recognition of 8 gym trainers. Urayu sighed as he spoke. Immediately, his expression shifted, brimming with confidence. But so what? I'm the ultimate winner. Come on, stop the nonsense and get ready to register. After that, we'll be heading to the opening ceremony. Xiaozin was the first to approach Ms. Joy at the check-in counter. Ms. Joy was incredibly quick, and in just 5 minutes, it was Yu and the others' turn. Here are my gym badges. Yu was the first to remove the 8 gym badges he had on him and handed them to Ms. Joy for scanning. Only after the 8 officially recognized gym badges are scanned can eligibility be truly confirmed. Without the 8 officially recognized gym badges, even if you have more gym badges, it will be useless. Even if you already have 7 of the recognized gym badges, it's completely impossible to get one of them. Miss Joy quickly scanned Yuyu's 8 gym badges and confirmed his eligibility. Yuyu, your information has been recorded. I hope you'll do your best in the upcoming matches. After a thank you, Yuyu stepped aside, handing over the control position to Yanrong behind him. He then went to the other side and drew his next opponent. As if to ensure fairness, the match wasn't drawn by machine, but by catching Magikarp. The Magikarp were labeled with various numbers, and whoever caught a Magikarp with the same number would become their next opponent. Next to Yuyu, other trainers were also participating in the Magikarp fishing draw. Soon, Yuyu's opponents were listed. They were a man and a woman, both young Pokemon trainers. After silently memorizing the 2 trainers' appearances, Yuyu stepped aside to allow Yanrong, who had followed closely behind, to draw the prizes. Soon, the entire process was complete, and the list of competitors they would challenge was revealed. Notably, none of the other players' assigned opponents were familiar. This could be considered good news, at least they wouldn't be eliminated before the round of 64. Of course, if they possessed sufficient skill, they might even face each other in the round of 64. After learning their upcoming opponents, Yuyu and the others didn't linger and left. They returned to their rest area, but this time, they didn't gather together, instead going about their own business. Time passed, and it was already noon. Yuyu went out to pack some takeout, brought it back to the 3 women who were still resting in their rooms, and then continued to rest in his room, watching the Torch Runner's journey on television. The live broadcast was quite lively. The screen featured a very handsome Torch Runner, holding the flame from the Flame Bird. Next to him was a powerful-looking cat boss. The crowds cheered for this runner. Chapter 1024, The Accumulation of Conspiracy. The Golden Crow sets in the west, the Jade Rabbit rises in the east. Time quickly drifts into evening, and with a painstaking torch-carrying torchbearers, the Pokémon League competition's opening ceremony is about to begin. By this time, the trainers, in perfect unison, have begun to gather at the Pokémon League competition venue. The surrounding auditoriums are already packed. After all, the Pokémon League competition opening ceremony is a rare regional spectacle, and some prefer to watch it live rather than on television. After all, only by experiencing it in person can you truly grasp the intensity of the atmosphere. Although the opening ceremony is still some time away, the venue is already buzzing with activity. Joy, noise, and clamor mingled continuously. And at that moment, in the open space at the center of the venue, amidst the subsequent battle song, the Pokémon trainers who have registered for the competitions began to arrive one after another. As luck would have it, Yuyu ran into his old acquaintances upon arriving. Hey, Yuyu, are you following us? Why do we keep seeing you everywhere? Xiaozin glared at Yuyu with a hint of annoyance. Facing Xiaozin's constant barrage of conversation, Xiaozin simply ignored him, finding an open space and waiting for the opening ceremony to begin. Yulong Zinai, who had arrived earlier, also spotted Yuyu and immediately came over to chat. As Yuyu chatted with Yulong Zinai, he also began to survey the surroundings. He felt a sense of utter euphoria at the grand scale of such a regional event. It was almost as grand as the original exchange meeting. However, just as he was about to attend the exchange, Yuyu suddenly felt a sudden surge of alarm bells, a sense that something bad was about to happen. Yuyu, what's wrong with you? Yulong Zinai, only noticing the uneasy look on Yuyu's face, immediately inquired with concern. He didn't want his equally formidable rival to suffer a physical accident at such a crucial moment, thus missing out on their mutual battle. Why do I keep feeling a little uneasy? Yuyu expressed his inner thoughts, his expression extremely solemn. Oh, don't worry, don't worry. I think you're probably just too nervous because the competition is about to start. It seems your relaxation yesterday didn't work for you. Yulong Zinai, however, was completely unconcerned, assuming that Yuyu was simply nervous because it was his first time participating in such a large-scale event, so he quickly offered comfort. Is that really the case? Yuyu, after hearing Yulong Zinai's words, suddenly felt a bit overly alarmed. After all, this was a major tournament hosted by the Kalos Pokémon League. To ensure its success, security had been meticulous, almost impenetrable. Given the circumstances, what kind of unexpected events could possibly occur at such a convention? Those assigned to security aren't simply here to help me, They're all combatants within the league. Each of them is formidable, at least to outsiders, considered top-tier Pokemon trainers. That's for sure. This is the Pokemon League tournament. What could possibly go wrong? Just be 100% confident. Yulong Zinai grabbed Yu Yu's shoulders, pausing him from further consideration. Pikachu, startled by Yulong Zinai's sudden action, leaped and landed directly on Yu Yu's head. Yu Yu could only suppress his inner turmoil as he waited with the other trainers for the opening ceremony to begin. Meanwhile, as Yu Yu waited for the ceremony to begin, on the other side of Mire City, shadows moved relentlessly. The most eye-catching of these were the 8 leading figures, dressed in a variety of colors, but conspicuously, each had a large S printed on it. Has the opening ceremony of the Pokemon League tournament begun? One of the 8 figures, the one clearly the leader, asked. It's about time, is that so? Then our show is about to begin, let's go, get all units moving. Let's use the Kalos tournament to demonstrate the might of our S organization to the world. Let's capture the city now, yes. As the leader finished his words, a uniform yet excited chorus of voices echoed. In the otherwise bustling night, it seemed oppressive. Through the moonlight that tore through the clouds overhead, the 8 figures' faces were clearly visible, each bearing a strange, chilling expression. Beneath their veiled fighting power, a dense mass of shadows could be seen, constantly shifting. Though the darkness obscured their full scope, the glare of those eyes, bright crimson and fierce in the darkness, was enough to send a chill down one's spine. As Ning's forces dispersed and began to move, bursts of roaring and howling emanated from the darkness. Then, a crimson gaze rose and fell, spreading left and right, like a flood bursting forth, surging in all directions. The moonlight in the sky gradually gave way to dark clouds once again. It was as if all light in the world had been completely shrouded in darkness, leaving only the massive building in the center of Mire City Square not far away, its lights flickering and swaying, accompanied by a roar of joy. A vast conspiracy and storm began to move towards the brightest, most luminous spot on this darkness. It seemed as if it was threatening to destroy the last shred of light and plunge the world into complete darkness. The stars in the sky seemed to cease twinkling, as if conscious of the impending darkness. Meanwhile, the Pokemon trainers and spectators at the Kalos tournament, caught in the storm's center, were unaware of the impending storm. With the opening ceremony about to begin, the already lively atmosphere in the venue intensified. In the center of the venue, there is a huge electronic display screen showing the progress of the torch runners. Chapter 1025 Incident. On the giant electronic display screen, the sweat-drenched silhouette of a lifestyle runner shone forth, accompanied by the same cat boss. Even though they had been running since noon, they hadn't stopped at all. Their single goal was to carry the holy flame to the massive brazier at the Pokemon Center, ignite it, and transmit the spirit of the holy flame to every competitor. As the hands of a giant electronic clock ticked beside the display screen, the figure of the holy flame runner finally appeared in the eyes of the crowd, synchronizing with the display screen. Under the gaze of the crowd, the keeper of the holy flame, Guild President Emerlachi, had already arrived at the giant brazier. Standing beside him was a strikingly beautiful figure. Karuno. The sight of this figure brought the already lively atmosphere of the venue to a new climax. At this moment, the audience, the Pokemon, and the trainers, all erupted in roars of despair. His eyes were filled with enthusiasm, like a passionate fan meeting his idol. It's worth noting that, as the current Pokemon League champion of the Kalos region, Karuna is incredibly powerful. Consequently, she attracts the admiration of many trainers, especially new female Pokemon trainers, who often look up to her. After all, males outnumber female Pokemon trainers, so her ability to stand out on this situation speaks volumes about Karuna's strength and popularity among female Pokemon trainers. Furthermore, Karuna, besides being the current Pokemon champion of the Kalos region, is also a renowned actress. With such beauty and talent, who wouldn't admire and be passionate about Karuna? Karuna, still adorned in her magnificent attire, looked incredibly striking even when simply following Guild President Amarachi. And Karuna's presence was entirely due to the Kalos Pokemon League tournament. As the current champion of the Kalos League, she would definitely participate in such a large-scale Pokemon battle event. Firstly, it would encourage the new trainers to strive for strength. While setting a goal, it also served as a great way to maintain order. After all, every Pokemon League tournament was a top priority for the Pokemon League. Besides the extremely strict security, Every champion from today's event would be present, and sometimes even the top players would be in attendance. Therefore, the presence of the champions was of great significance. Facing the overwhelming cheers, Karuna remained remarkably calm, a kind smile on her face. She raised her hand, signaling for silence. The previously seething atmosphere instantly fell silent, as if this was just how it should be. The previous lively atmosphere was completely gone. "It's a pleasure to meet you all here," Karuna said officially, then stepped aside. After all, she wasn't the star of the show right now. "Then let us invite President Amaraki to carry the flame of hope." Just as Karuna finished speaking, the torch runner arrived at the bottom of the steps, carrying the flame. Under the gaze of the crowd, the torch runner ascended the stairs with steady steps, followed closely by Catboss, like a loyal guard. Whoosh, whoosh, at that moment, the vast venue was hushed, the only sound audible being the torch runner's slightly panting breathing. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. The torch runner drew closer and closer to the platform. But at that very moment, in the full glare of everyone's attention, something unexpected happened. A vast shadow appeared in the sky, covering the entire sky. The venue, once brightly lit and almost as bright as day, seemed to be completely grasped by a vast, obscuring hand. The light gradually faded, and darkness gradually enveloped everyone. Faced with this sudden change, the one who reacted most swiftly was, of course, the champion, Karuna. Without a word, she dispatched her Pokémon. Gardox observed her surroundings warily. Faced with this sudden enveloping darkness, even a powerful creature like Gardox could not help but show a hint of panic upon its appearance, but it quickly regained its composure. Compared to the Pokémon, Karuna appeared considerably calmer. "Who is playing tricks on me? Come out." It was hard to believe such a powerful shout would come from Karuna, who seemed so gentle and cool. "This is the venue for the Kalos Regional Pokémon League Tournament. It is sacred and inviolable. Come out now, and don't force me to do anything." At this moment, the atmosphere in the arena had lost its earlier warmth. It gradually turned cold and solemn, even filled with oppression. Some timid spectators and trainers were already trembling in fear at the darkness. Even some children in the audience couldn't help but burst into tears, throwing themselves into their parents' arms. Those parents, faced with this scene, couldn't breathe, and rushed to comfort their children's cries, fearing that a single cry could escalate into a more dire situation. Of course, there were also powerful trainers among the crowd, but faced with an unpredictable situation, they chose not to take action, quietly watching the situation unfold. The trainers of the participating competitors standing in the center of the venue were the ones bearing the greatest shock at this moment. Facing such an uncertain situation, it would be a lie to say they weren't panicking. However, they were all worthy of having earned 8 gym badges, and their strength was formidable. Even in such a situation, no one wanted to show fear. After all, those around them might be their opponents, and they didn't want to be mocked for their incompetence and cowardice. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.